Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this joint meeting of the Kennebunkport Selectboard and the Kennebunkport Budget Board. Today is March 19th, 2026. I'm calling the Selectboard to order at 6 p.m. We have one individual, Alan Daggett, who is on Zoom. Alan, can you say hi?
Aye.
Great. So we are all present, and
Physically, anyway.
physically anyway. Amen to that. April?
And I would like to call the meeting of the Budget Board to order. We have a quorum, so we're ready to roll.
Excellent. So we'll turn it over to our town manager.
Good evening. So tonight, we are going to start with reviewing the capital budget, and then we will go into any outside agencies and town committee reviews. And then we will review any outstanding questions and talk about the newest information from the school and county. And that sounds like a good plan for now. So we need to be on the first slide. Looks like we're at a long time in.
Well, went quickly.
Keep going.
You get a preview in reverse, so this is kind of fun.
All right, so next slide. So as we talked about in the original budget presentation, the capital budget makes up $2.3 million. Next slide. So we are going to go by category. So under administration, our capital budget includes, the first one is records preservation, which Tracy O'Rourke will speak to.
What page are?
296.
I'm sorry, I didn't tell you any page numbers.
296 for this one.
Yes, so you should be under your debt capital tab, and we are at page 295.
Hi, good evening. Tracy O'Rourke, Town Clerk. And as you can see from this slide, my capital budget is asking for $10,000 for records preservation. Kennebunkport has the distinction of being the second oldest town in Maine, and just think of the rich history that is preserved in our town records dating back to 1678. Records preservation has been an ongoing project for more than 25 years, and it was started by April Dufault all those years ago. And previously restored documents include vital records, valuation books, and town meeting records. At this point, I am going to be focusing on our vital records from 1892 through 1960. Those record books have births, deaths, and marriages from that time period, and they're starting to deteriorate just because of the age of them, and over the years, people flipping through the books, and it does deteriorate the paper as well as the ink is starting to fade. So we need to get those preserved to ensure access for future generations of all of those records. So if you look on the slide, you can see what an old record book looks like that is in need of restoring, and then the pages on the inside are that second slide in the middle on the top. And then the last slide in the right-hand corner shows the process of preservation. So what they do first is disassemble the books, and then each sheet is surface cleaned, deacidified, and then mended in a lab setting. It's all very clinical, and they wear gloves and use tweezers, and they make sure that our records come out pristine. All adhesives and non-archival materials are removed from the pages because over the years, you know, people put Scotch tape on things that start to tear, and that is not, it won't preserve the record. It deteriorates after time. And then the sheets are then encapsulated in archival polyester and placed in custom binders. And this process preserves and protects our records for many more generations to come. And anyone who would like to see a before and after is welcome to come to Town Hall, and I'll show you in the vault what we have. And the company we use, CoFile, that's what April has used all these years, and they do a fabulous job And our records are beautiful and hopefully will last for a very long time.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Do we digitize them at the same time?
We do not. That would be a lot more money. It's very costly to digitize. And then over the years, the formats change, so we have to try to keep up with technology. So at this point, we're just restoring them for what we have in the paper.
Okay.
We have taken on a digitization project
Yes.
where we have now digitized all the property record files. We digitized past town clerk licenses. We've done some finance records, and most recently, we just sent out all the planning board, zoning board of appeals, and planning board records. So we are digitizing things. It's just the historical records would be hard to digitize without damaging them.
Correct. Any other questions? Yes.
Where are we in the process as far as age-wise, year-wise?
So we've done valuation books up. We're about halfway done with those, but after I started, I switched over to our old town meeting records because those were being accessed more often. So those are all up to date. And
The
then
date being,
up through the 90s. They're out there now actually being done.
Okay.
So, and then the vital records are up through, I would say, probably the late 2010s. So once I'm done with the older records that are starting to deteriorate, I'll do those as well. So I'm trying to do what's needed first, which the
Process.
records we're starting to lose more frequently or quicker than the others.
is it worth putting another 5,000 or so onto top of that to-
Sure.
so we can get that?
I would not say no. I would not say no to
Tracy
that.
will take it.
So, yes, I mean, whatever, anything extra, it just helps us get there a little bit quicker. Yes.
Is that mostly labor, or is there expensive materials that you need for this?
No, it's basically the labor and the materials that the company uses. So I'm not sure how they break it down. I tell them what I have, and they give me a quote for what it will take them to restore those documents. It's by page. If you have a thicker book, those thicker town meeting record books, some of them would take the whole 10,000 at this point, because costs are going up. But the older records are skinnier, the books are skinnier, so I can get more books done with the $10,000.
Curious, have we had a chance to look at other providers? You've used these people for a long time, but
Yes.
prices are going up, maybe a little competitive quote, and then say, can you match it or something?
I do check, but this company have such a good reputation, and almost every town uses them, so I would hate to
All right,
try someone new and maybe it wouldn't be as good a quality.
Well, the other thing that happened is they were recently bought out. And just like in all other businesses, we're seeing a conglomeration, and so there are fewer providers.
yeah, that would make sense.
Okay.
Anything else? All
Thank you,
right, thank
Tracy.
you.
All right, next slide. So in the administration capital budget, there is a request for 500,000. We would put that 500,000 with our $500,000 donation to needed repairs and renovations at Town Hall at 6 Elm Street. So as you're aware, the town voted down a new town hall, and we have been putting off repairs at the current town hall, including we need a new roof. The HVAC system is in trouble. One of the systems is totally failed, and we need to replace it. We have some other issues with some cracks, flooding in the ceiling. But we have been prolonging those repairs because we wanted to see, the turnout in terms of whether we were going to invest in a new building. So now that that is not complete, now that that decision is complete, we really need to attend to those renovations to the town hall because the building is in quite disrepair. So over here on the left, you can see April up in the ceiling. This is when we had a big flooding event from the HVAC system. You can see we have plastic bags in the garage area because the roof, especially the flat area back rubber roof we've repaired it many times. On the left, this is the current town hall. This is a building plan for that. So if you go to the next slide, the other piece of the $1 million is this blue area is where we currently have the garage area, and it is just open bays. And so we did ask our architect to look at what we could accomplish out there to try and just make space for employees in the current building. So I have a blown up of that blue square over here. So the last fire bay there would still be bulk storage, because we still need some storage in there, especially for town meeting ballot boxes and some of our larger equipment. We would have additional restrooms. We would move planning and codes out back to the garage area. They would have to develop a whole floor. We would have to insulate that entire building. A lot of the money would be spent in just creating a livable space out there. And then create a conference room, because we don't really have one now. If you look at the front of the building that's not in the blue square, so that for the most part stays the way it is. We might do some minor repairs, and we would move some of the employees and change, so we'd have a small conference room. You can see it up in the front, so it could be accessed either way, and keep the kitchen the way it is and the bathrooms the way they are. So for the most part, it would be doing those major repairs that we discussed, as well as renovating about 1,400 square feet in the back of the building. So I don't have a quote that says $1 million is absolutely gonna do it, but I've told them that's all they get. And so I said, we're gonna do what we can with $1 million. And so this is what I think we could accomplish with that, besides the other repairs needed. Are there any questions on that?
Were we redoing the vault, or no, we're gonna leave the papers where it was? Okay.
We're leaving the vault as is. With the recent digitization of records, we're trying to make some space in the vault. So some of the things, once we digitize them, we'll put them in boxes. We may need to rent space someplace to store some of our records too. I don't think this last bay is going to
Hold everything.
hold everything we need.
Okay.
But if it's digitized, I'm not as concerned about it.
Right.
Lori, are there any code issues that we're going to be looking at? I know we're non-conforming as it is, but any code issues that we're going to run into with that construction in that garage bay?
Well, we talked about, with the architect, when that would be triggered in terms of bringing areas up to code in other areas of the building. I think that certainly in the back, we are going to need to meet code. You can see that there's a ramp down in the bulk storage area. We need to put sprinkler system in. So there are some things that will need to be brought up.
Lori, have we looked at, you alluded to outside storage for records. Again, coming from the banking world, we used to use Iron Mountain heavily. And it's very secure, obviously. So, I mean, that's to gain space when it's so at a premium here. Just throw that out.
Yeah, and I think that we would need to do that, but we have a snow blower, we have the trash bins, we have the big ballot boxes. So there is some stuff we still need to store on site.
Lori, can you speak to the 500,000 through donations? You may have mentioned that, but I missed what that is.
Yeah, when we were going through the original rendition, I had conversations with various people in town, and we did receive a $500,000 donation towards a new town hall. I believe those funds can be used towards this renovation.
What are you gonna put down where code enforcement was?
I was right now looking to move support services down there, HR, IT, communications, because they need a little more space. Finance and town manager would stay there. We'd move town clerk over to our area and keep the other town clerk functions the way they are.
Okay.
I mean, this is our draft. Certainly, we would need to go through a final plan. Okay, next slide. So the other thing that is in this budget is 200,000 for a market statistical analysis. So we've talked about where we are in terms of valuation and our ratio, and so Becky Logan, I was gonna say it.
You got it.
Our assessor is gonna take you through these few slides and answer any questions.
Right, so I am here tonight to discuss the statistical analysis that we're looking to do, hopefully within the next year, if everything goes well. Next slide. So the state, why now? The state requires municipalities to do a reevaluation every 10 years to maintain ratios within the required amount, which is 70 to 100% of just value, sorry. I'm short, so I want to make sure you guys can hear me. There we go. Sorry. So we did a statistical update in 2022, but you can see that we are slowly sliding. Our values are less than what people are paying for their homes in Kennebunkport. Our current assessment ratio is 81%. The state does allow a 10% deviation, which means that we can add 10% and to try to get our ratio up higher so that people can enjoy their exemptions at a higher rate, because we also have to adjust the exemptions that people receive to help pay their property taxes. We also have to adjust those down to the ratio. Our projected ratio for next year is actually 75%. I got notification that they've developed a projected ratio of 75% for next year. So even though we're still within the required ratio range, I feel that it's important to start looking at least at making some adjustments.
Why don't you just move the mic over to where you want to talk? Do you want to
Okay,
just?
I'm a good assessor, I'm just not good with microphones.
Do you
How's
want-
that? There we go.
Do you want to just talk about the timeline? Because even though if we budgeted the money, what that timeline would actually look like before implementation and where
Okay.
we might be?
Sure. So if the budget does get approved and we can go forward and do a statistical update, it will take probably about a year, so it would not go into effect for this April 1st. We would be looking, hopefully, to get it completed by April 1st of 2027, depending on how intense and how much involvement, needs to happen.
And it could potentially go out to 2028.
Yes, it could potentially go out to 2028, depending on the availability of having somebody come in and assist me in getting the ratios to where they need to be, because it is not something that, unfortunately, I can do by myself. Next slide. So you can see that where our values were compared to what the state valuation has. You can see that the town has, historically been always behind the state with values, and you can see in 2022, we exceeded what the state value had because we did the statistical update. And then you can see that we maintained in 2023. In 2024, we started to slip, and you can see a big dip now in 2025. So our assessments are getting further and further away from where the state valuation is.
Becky, can you just
Yep.
remind me about the last bullet?
The homestead exemption and veterans exemption? Okay. So currently where we're at 81%, and I explained about the 10% deviation, I was allowed to certify our ratio at 90%. The state gives us that. So the homestead exemptions and the veterans exemptions are at 90% of what they would have been. So instead of $25,000, it was $22,500, I believe, for this year at 90%. If next year, most likely for April 1st of 2026, we'll have the 75% ratio, But with the 10% deviation, we'll be allowed to go up to 83%. 83, because it's 10% of 75. So 10% of 75 is 7.5. Yeah, that's, yeah. I know, that's state math. So the homestead exemption is going to be even less for next year, because we'll be at 83%.
And you just said that April of '26, so next month?
Yeah.
Is when it,
Yes, that's when the values will, that's
the
when
new
the,
values will come out.
that's
next-
when, yeah.
in a
When
month.
she says next year, she's talking next fiscal year, but that's her April 1st of this year.
Yes, so, yeah, April, yeah. It gets confusing with the budgets, unfortunately. Next slide, I think, is that it? Oh, so we've looked at, because of the amount of money, we had originally asked for 500,000, and I believe, then we cut it down to 3, and now we're down to 200,000. So with that amount of money, a statistical update will be more cost-effective for the town, because we won't have to visit every home. It won't be a full measure and list. We will focus, I will have them focus on the properties that have not been visited since 2009, when we did our last full measure and list. So we have some properties that don't get updated every year, because if they don't have building permits or things like that, those are the properties that haven't gotten visited. So I'd like to focus kind of on those a little bit more. And then there's other areas of town, obviously, where I can see the values and the assessments are getting further and further out of whack. So I want to focus on the problem areas, if that's what you want to call them, or the areas that have seen the most growth, to get them up to where they need to be. And that will help equalize our values.
Good.
Okay? Yes.
I recall from the first presentation on this, you talked about the importance of doing this regularly, so that we avoid what Kennebunk is going through, for example.
Yes.
And that there is a requirement that we maintain, the state requires that we maintain a certain percentage of
Yes.
valuation.
Yes.
So one of the reasons why they had the tax shock is because it hadn't been done in numerous years.
Right.
So I think it's just helpful if you can re-explain that. I'm
Okay.
not sure I remember that.
Nope, that's correct. So Kennebunk recently did a revaluation. Their values had gone down to, I believe it was like 46%. So by the time they did the revaluation, of course, because it takes time and it took a few years, I believe Dan had the full measure and list, it becomes quite a sticker shock for people. The goal of any assessor is to try to watch.
I went up 250%
Did you? Yeah.
in my little neighborhood.
Yeah. Mine went up, but I have to say that mine was right in line where it needed to be, so I did not have to file for an abatement. However, so trying to do the updates more frequently, or having it more on a rotating basis. I know other communities, what they try to do is they try to put money aside every year in a budget, so that as they see their ratios slipping, they can go right in and go, we've got, the 50,000, let's hire a company and get our values up and do that. So they can do it more frequently. So that kind of is the goal, is to try to maintain these. And I feel that do what we did in 2022, and when I've spoken to other assessors, their first question is, well, what's your ratio? And when I say, well, it's 81%, they're like, oh, you're great. Oh, you're good. But that's not good for us. I want to maintain that, because what I don't want is the sticker shock. If it drops so much, then that's when people start knocking on my door. And
If the assessed value goes up, shouldn't the mill rate go down,
Well,
right?
that's up
mean,
to,
in a
yes.
perfect
yes,
world,
in a perfect world,
right.
yes, that's exactly what happens. Because whatever our budgetary requirements are, if we maintained a flat budget, if our value goes up, that tax rate will drop. And so that's usually what I try to explain to people. As values go down, the tax rate goes up, because you still have to meet the same budgetary requirements, the county, the school, and the municipal budgets. So, yes, so hopefully, if the values do go up, the tax rate will come down.
tax rate comes down, but as far as what people pay, it's about a third, a third, a third,
That's
right?
what
If-
they,
if it's done
that's what they
statistically.
say.
So a third pay less, a third pay about the
Yeah,
same, and a third pay more.
Yeah, it doesn't always work that way
But
because.
it's in that, yeah.
Yes, it's in that realm, yeah, for sure.
I have a question.
Yeah,
But this is probably for Lori.
okay.
In our budget book, it has $300,000 in here for the amount,
Which page are we
not
on?
Page
200,000.
295.
So that's because it also includes the ATV, the AVTV system. So it includes two things in that line item.
No, that's what I got
If you-
confused.
Is it something that we haven't talked about yet?
April, look at
It
the,
is something
the note.
So under special projects,
It's 200,000.
we have 300,000, and that's because 200,000 is the market assessment, and 100,000 is for the AV-TV equipment, which we'll talk about next.
Oh, okay, that's what's confusing.
It's just they're both in that same line item.
Yes,
Can you go back 2 slides, please?
sure. This
Okay.
one?
So I'm just curious as to what the impact on our share of the giant RSU 21 budget is relative to our rate, our ratio going up or down. This is probably a question for Lori.
I'm not sure I understand your question.
It's on valuation.
Yeah,
isn't it?
the ratios that I are showing are based on what people are paying for their homes and what I have them assessed for. So,
So what the school, the RSU formula uses is they use the state valuation number. So whatever the state says, and they use the last 3 years and they average them.
oh, okay.
So it's, they're, irregardless of what we do, they have their own,
They have their own truth.
they have their own math.
Correct.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Okay, Mr. Beard.
By and large, redoing what, or doing what you're asking makes it fairer
Correct.
for all people in town.
Yes, yes, it does. Because when you look in a neighborhood and you see that some houses are being sold for $5 or $6 million, their assessments are not reflective of that because we haven't caught up to the sales and to trend and to make those adjustments. That's why I was pointing out that there are some properties that in certain areas that have blossomed and people are really wanting to buy those. And we're always 2 years behind the state. When the state gives a value, we're 2 years behind because we're looking at sales from 2 years ago. So it takes us a little bit of time to catch up. But yes, it is very important to get caught up so that it is fair and equitable for everybody. Yes.
Can you say anything about how the state does that assessment?
How the state comes
Yeah.
up with their value?
Right.
What you got going on there, Dan?
Yeah. So let me pull out my notes because I discussed that the last time. So how, let's see.
So in simple terms.
Okay, thank you.
What the state does is every year,
Yeah.
they send a audit down to us, and it has all the sales that have taken place in Kennebunkport.
Right.
And they have on that list the sale price, and then it's Becky's job to tell them what the assessed value of that is. And then Becky tries to weed out arm's length sales from non-sales. So do you want to speak about that?
Sure. So what I do is when, like Lori said, the state comes in and audits me, and I have to give them all the values. And I do take out the properties that were not arm's length transactions, things that either were not on the market or estate sales, things like that. And what the state then does is they take my values, they take the sales price, and they determine a ratio. And they say, okay, well, this is where your ratio is. So what they do is then once they total all my values, then they say, well, because you came out at 80%, we're going to add 20% to this final number, and that's where you should be. So what they're doing is they're adjusting my values. So even though I'm at 81%, they're adjusting my values up to 100%. And they do that for all the municipalities in the state so that everybody is being looked at 100% of market value, even though there's communities that are not at there. So that's why they're always above us, because 2 years behind, but that's why.
So they're looking strictly at sales?
They
They're not
look at the
really
sale-
assessing anything?
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. They're looking at the sales prices, and then they're determining the ratio based on my assessments, yeah.
So in regards to what's not in the budget, as we discussed in capital, so we talked about how we did have 300,000 in there originally. When we brought the final budget, we made it a statistical analysis at 200,000. So, you know, we would do the best we can within that funding, and we wouldn't be doing a fuller reval.
Right.
Okay?
Okay. All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thanks, Becky.
Thanks, Becky.
So Yanina is going to talk about the other 100,000 in that line item.
Good evening, everyone. Yanina Nicholas, Director of Support Services. So in November of 2025, Support Services Department produced a request for proposals for the new professional audio-video broadcast system. So in simple terms is what we use today here right now. So all the microphones and cameras and what Dave and Mike are doing in the tech room, that is that system. So the reason for us producing RFP was we felt acute need last year when this system started failing before multiple meetings, and Dave started taking pieces of equipment from the police department. Because police department has a twin system set up, and it was set up both at the same time. So they both outlived their equipment life, so it's about 9 years old. And in talking to multiple tech companies, the life span of such system is about 7 years. So again, we started spending money on professionals and inviting people to fix things. So we went out for proposals. We received 6 back, and in February 26 of 2026, I presented to the Select Board the recommended proposal, which is Stone Mountain Systems. They were right in the middle of proposals. We interviewed all the companies and determined that this company was the best for our needs. They're the closest to. They are from Scarborough, which is nice to support local vendor. Very knowledgeable, and so we started talking to them, and they're great and supportive. So this piece here that you see on the PowerPoint is $100,000 to replace equipment in this room. The company also gave us a proposal to replace the police station, yet as you can see the trend of this budget season, that was cut out from this budget. So this company proposed $50,000 for the police station, and that includes their discount. They were the only company that gave us a labor discount if we would do both at the same time. So the pros of having the same system at the police station, sometimes board does meet at the police station. We do have other committees who meet there. Also, as I mentioned, when this system started failing, we started taking equipment from the police station here. And, you know, it's just nice to have a backup, because I can only assume how important, and you know how important this system for residents. This goes to YouTube, to channels. This is the biggest communication piece we have. So if this fails, residents cannot participate in the meeting remotely. They cannot see it. They cannot review the recordings. That's all gone. It's all happening here and now. So again, what was cut out is $50,000 from this equipment from the police station. Do you have any questions?
Will the equipment here then be usable in the police station as sort of for repairs? Because they're going to still have an old system there, yes?
So yeah, if if this will stay as a part that nobody puts back, then the police station will have the old system, which is again similar to this one. Some of the pieces of that equipment can be usable, but because the systems are so different, I would say they will be just two different systems.
He's saying, can we use this old equipment here at PD, if that stays old?
I would say PD equipment was in better shape than this one. So because police is used less than this one here, and you can see it's also cheaper, so it's again as a backup. This equipment here is basically running on its last breath. So if anything, I would probably say they would want to use police over this one. Yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we're gonna move on to police, so page 296, and Chief Simeone.
Hi, everyone. Next slide. So what we're looking to do, for the last couple of years, we've been trying to rotate out our older cameras. These are the in-car cameras that we have in our cruisers. A few of these now at this point are 14 years old. They were actually in service before I retired the first time. And so we're looking to rotate these out. 2 years ago, we were able to replace one of them. This year, we're replacing two of them when the two new vehicles come in. And so we're looking at this point to replace the remaining two in this next coming budget. Next slide, please. We had a request from the Goose Rocks Beach Advisory Committee to purchase some more electronic signs that we could use down at Goose Rocks Beach. As we know, with the influx of traffic in the summer months, speeding becomes a concern. So we're looking to deploy a few more of these signs down at Goose Rocks Beach. And the total for four of them is about $14,000. And so we're looking to commit this set of signs down to Goose Rocks Beach. Our station cameras, so we currently do have cameras at the police station. We don't have a lot of them. Ideally, we can't cover the entire building or the entire circumference of the building, or some portions of the inside of the building that we'd like to cover. And right now, we actually have several cameras that are not functioning. Due to the age of these cameras, and some of these cameras at this point are 30 years old. I cannot find replacements. They had a few on eBay. I wasn't willing to take the chance. So we're currently looking to replace these cameras and add a few so that we can actually see the entire building. We have currently one of our vehicles. It's our 2015 Ford Escape. Last year, just after the budget process closed, it was due for inspection. We brought it in for inspection. It turns out that the vehicle's not inspectable. The front and rear subframes are completely rotted out in it. It needs an exhaust, and all the suspension components were in the same condition. At this point in time, it's really not worth putting money into. So we're looking to replace that vehicle with either a Ford Explorer Police Interceptor utility or one of the new Dodge Durango Pursuit utilities. You know, when we look at which one we might want to replace it with, we're going to be looking at cost. Typically, if we're swapping out a patrol vehicle, we're trying to reuse some of the equipment that's in the existing patrol vehicles. However, as models change, we may not be able to do that. So I'm not sure at this point which one we'd be looking to go to. It's really all going to depend on whether or not there's any model changes coming out. But we're looking to replace that vehicle.
Question, last year, if I remember right, you had a pickup truck in your budget?
Yes,
I think
we did.
approved. Did you ever get it?
So we're actually waiting on that right now. We got word that it was supposed to be built this month at Ford. We were a little delayed in getting that out. Last year, we were holding off on purchasing capital there for a little while to make sure that we were all set, you know, regarding the RSU budget. So by the time we actually got this out, I think it was November, December, we got authorization to purchase the vehicles. Both of them had to be built. They didn't have anything on the lot that we could buy. So still waiting on those to come in. I would expect that truck's going to arrive within the next 3 to 5 weeks. So.
Thanks.
Next slide, please. So this is communications, so the communications budget actually encompasses the building for the most part. We're looking to replace the flooring. You know, everything on the newer part of the building, the addition out front with the meeting room and the lobby is still in fantastic shape. This would be the flooring that's on the secured side of the building. As you're all aware, our operations are 24-hour, you know, operation 7 days a week. So floor sees a lot of use. You know, the floor that was put down was probably a good product at the time, but, you know, for the amount of use that we see at the police department, there's certainly better products out there at this point. This floor is beyond salvageable at this point. You can see in the pictures, we have several, you know, tiles that are coming apart. We're at a point now where even if we tried to strip it and buff it and re-wax it, it's beyond repair. So this would be, take care of the flooring on the secured side of the building as well as the nurses' wing, which I think is in a separate budget. We're also looking to purchase 3 more lockers. Our last several hires, we've been hiring female officers, so we've had a female locker room, but we always never had a lot of lockers in there just because, you know, the department was predominantly male at the time. Now, with the advent of hiring more female officers, we've actually removed a lot of, 3 of the lockers now from the male locker room. So myself and the deputy chief had to give up lockers so that we could make sure that they had lockers. So we're trying to replace those lockers that we had to take out of the male locker room so that I have a place to put clothes again. This last one, originally we had put in a request for $50,000. As everybody's heard, you know, with the implementation of the yellow flag law a few years ago, and now most recently the red flag law, it's not uncommon now for us to take possession of a lot of weapons. This could be due to, you know, in order to surrender those weapons due to protection orders, could be a yellow flag violation. So we're seeing ourselves taking a lot more weapons that we need to hold. Last year it became an issue. We were running out of space. I did go and I purchased the largest firearm safe that I could, which was, I believe, a capacity of 84. In less than a couple months, we filled that. So that gives you some idea of just how much we're taking in. We're running out of room. But I'm happy to say that we did have a grant come out. We applied for that grant, and we actually were awarded $58,000 to complete those renovations. And there was no match to that. It was all federal funds. So we're going to be moving forward to that project here shortly. Next slide.
So this 50,000 is not needed?
Well,
it's
not
the 58 that you got will cover what the 50 was hopefully going to buy.
that is correct.
Okay.
That's showing up on the revenue end then.
It's in this fiscal year, so it wouldn't be in the FY '27.
So what's not in the budget was an access control system for the station. You know, currently, you know, we're still using keys for locked doors. We do have a couple punch pads for codes at 2 of our entrance doors. They're really rudimentary. And as we move through the process of getting accredited through MLEAP, you know, we need to have better documentation of the secured areas, of which people are coming and going, which people have access to these areas. And so what we're trying to accomplish is a key card system. What that key card system would allow us to do is basically set, you know, different levels of access. So, for example, the chief's office, the deputy's chief's office, the evidence room, our firearms room. We would be able to control those levels of access, but we would also be able to log who's going into those rooms, as well as, you know, the dates and the times that people are going into those rooms. So it would help us establish, you know, that data log that we need to you know, stay, you know, meet the accreditation standards that we're looking to do.
So what
can I-
he's asking, to be
So
clear.
can I ask a question?
Yep,
Following up on Dan, the $50,000 you don't need because you got a grant for $58,000, so you actually got $8,000. And you had to take $47,000 out of your budget, but that 50,000 could cover that?
That's what I was going to propose tonight. Yeah, we were
Just a
looking to,
suggestion.
we were
And
looking.
we'd still
with
have
that-
money left
And we come
over.
out 3K ahead.
And we would come out a little more money left over,
Yes, that's correct, yeah.
which
So-
would take care of the wellness.
So, yeah, my proposal was gonna be that, hopefully, maybe we could use that money to also take care of this project, which would help us, move forward with the MLEAP accreditation, so.
Are you gonna get a little bit more like robust official-looking door on that evidence room?
Oh, you don't like the hollow core,
That's all.
hollow core door?
Yeah, I'm just curious if that,
Yeah, so,
Okay.
again, we had a local contractor to come in and take a look at this. And so what we did spec out were our steel, tamper-proof, entry doors. So yes, it's gonna be quite a bit more robust than, the hollow core interior door. Any questions? Good? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So just 3 pages.
Next slide.
so we are at Public Works, and so this is, we did fire, remember, Jay couldn't be here this week.
Yep.
So we are down on page 299.
So we're asking to replace one truck in this coming year. It does take us about 18 months for us to actually go from build to receiving the vehicle. So right now, we'll continue to operate with this 2012 truck for a while. We try to replace our large pieces of equipment every 12 years or so. But realistically, here, we're gonna be into it for probably 13, 14 years, realistically, before we see a new truck. But here we are. We probably took this one a little bit out of sequence. This truck, we probably would have gone to truck 4 first, but this one has given us much more trouble, if you will. And so we opted to actually retire this particular vehicle first. So our intention is to get the balance of so there's been 150,000 reserves that have already been placed in. We're asking for the second half of that. The truck we're expecting to be around 300,000. We would bid that in July, I'm sorry. And we would then expect that to be received in either late 27 or early January of 28, or early 28.
Late 27.
Late 27, 18 months to build the truck out.
Wow, wow.
Yep. Yep. So the second item that we're looking for here, we've already placed 100,000 in reserves for this. As you can see here, you've got the pipe arch, if you will, the structural arch building that we have. That is currently on a concrete foundation. What we're looking to do is actually to demo the actual structural arch and get rid of that steel and metal, prep the existing foundation and go back and place a new fabric tension arch over that and reestablish our cold storage. This has been also identified by our insurance company as being at risk as it's starting to deteriorate.
And that 10,000's in the budget?
100,000.
100, sorry.
It's in FY '26.
So what is not in the budget is, talked about, a little bit about truck 4. Truck 4 is the next vehicle that we'll be looking to replace. We wanted to try to start to build reserves on that, but just trying to keep our budget as tight as possible. We've opted not to put that money in this year.
Which means we're gonna have to put it next year plus some.
Yes.
Put it in this year, get it over with.
But we won't have to replace the shed next year.
No, we've got other things we're trading off, you know. We got the town hall, we got some stuff.
Okay. I don't know if there's any questions on those. Yes.
How's the big salt shed doing?
It's doing all right. We don't have, relative to the cold storage building that we have here, it's actually in pretty good shape. We did do some tile replacements on the building recently, last year, but it's holding up well, so.
No, I remember when Russ was working in that, Russ Welch.
Brown?
And
Oh,
a lot of people gave him grief for having it built as big as it was, or is.
yeah, I don't know if there was grants back then. There were some grants back then for us to be able to build some of these, structures when they were trying to get all the salt underneath the cover. So that might have been why. I'm not sure. I wasn't around at that time, but, yeah. Yeah. So, I don't know if there's any other questions.
Thanks, Eric.
All right.
So on page 300, you just see a list of all the equipment in Public Works and the replacement year that's proposed, just as a reference. And then on page 301, we go to Public Health.
Good evening, everybody. Jen Brooks from Public Health. Proposing vehicle purchase for fiscal year '27. The current, in the oval, the lease expires March of 2027, so just planning ahead.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, can you hear me better now? Yeah. Sorry. So our current lease expires, or ends, March of 2027. The options that you see on the right, we researched, and with speaking with our then mechanic, recommended gas or a hybrid, so no electric was researched. However, I did research the buyout for the current vehicle, just to be prepared. So this capital request would be coming from the Pick of It Fund for Health and Police. And why do we need a vehicle? As mentioned last week, we do see 31 people in our homes, or in their homes, every week, so it's vital. My opinion, though.
So in the past two vehicles, we've had electric vehicles because there were large incentives that made it financially a good idea. Those incentives have disappeared, unfortunately, and so we looked at what makes the most sense in terms of investment, and of course, the board will ultimately make that decision when we're ready, but we have tried to research different vehicles to make sure we have a money amount that would make sense.
Correct. 2 out of the 4 vehicles on the slide are inside the $30,000 budget.
This would be a purchase, not a lease?
Yes.
And so the hybrid option, where would that fall? You
The
said
hybrid option was about 7,000 more than the 30.
about 37.
Correct. Yes.
They might come down by the time we get to quote, so
Yeah, right.
we'll hold on for that.
All right.
Yeah. Any other questions?
How many miles a day would you say you drive, just out of curiosity?
I don't know a day, but I figured it out to be 333 a month. The
So
current
the-
vehicle's just at like 7,200 for the odometer.
Yeah, so 300, 10, 30, so 33 would be 900, so no, that's, yeah, good.
Yeah.
300 a month, basically.
Correct, roughly. And that's including a trip here and there to Portland to donate goods to the Partners of World
Yeah,
Health.
hybrid would make a heck of a lot of sense, because you could charge it easily on the 110 and save some hydrocarbon.
I agree.
That's a good reason for you to run again.
I
So
will
you can
be
be
there, so I can
'Cause-
be
'cause
here
you'll be
when the
there to-
time comes.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what you want, John. You want your vote.
So I do have a question. So this is actually a more cost-effective solution than reimbursing staff to use their personal vehicles at the standard IRS mileage rate?
I would look at.
We did look at, because of the IRS rate now for mileage reimbursement, nurses were putting on about 7,000 miles a year. And when we looked at the cost in terms of how long we would keep the vehicle, it made better financial sense to keep a vehicle.
Isn't the IRS number like 70-some?
It's, yeah, it's almost as much as a stamp.
God, isn't that gross?
Any other questions? Thank you.
So Eric will come back up to talk about road improvement and sidewalks. So on page 302 is the road improvement funding, and then the following page on 303 talks about the projects we have planned this year.
Yeah, so just to kind of refresher here, I think some of you may have seen this already. We call it the knee of the curve. Basically, what happens is when a road is just paved, it's actually, we usually would give it a rating of 0 to 100, we'd call it 100 as it being excellent at that time. And what happens over time, between 5 and 7 years, that knee begins to break and deteriorate. What happens is when the road does begin to crack open and such, and water begins to get into the base of that road, it quickly deteriorates and becomes in worse condition. And also with that comes the price of repairing it. So what I might do after 5 to 7 years, I might do an overlay, which is just a pavement layer on top of the existing road, to try to bring that back to that excellent condition. Where if I was to wait, I would maybe in a more of a circumstance like, for example, like you saw with Wells District Road, where I'm reclaiming the road and then I'm repaving, putting full pavement, 4 inches of pavement back on the road as opposed to an inch of pavement, for example. So the cost, as you can see, the cost ratios are between 1 and 6 and 1 and 14, depending whether I'm doing a full reconstruction. Sometimes I have to actually dig the road base up, replace the gravels underneath the road. So it depends on the condition of the road. I may choose to do different treatments, but the whole point being is I'm always better off to make sure that I'm doing a good amount of overlays and trying to keep that road condition up and try to keep our pavement condition index up at a decent level. And I know I'm getting boring about this sometimes, but
No, it's really exciting. I look forward to this part. This is actually one of my favorite parts.
Our PCIs actually, we're staying up, we're about a 74 is what I would estimate right now, which is our pavement condition index, which is actually in a good condition, I would say, between around a good condition, which is roughly on average for the town-wide. Your personal experience may be different at your particular home, but generally speaking, the ratios on our roads are good right now. So next slide. So these are the roads that we're looking at. So we're pretty spread out throughout the town on these. These are basically, I utilize those PCIs. When I'm seeing those PCIs drop, when I say PCI, pavement condition index, drop below a certain level, we'll go out and identify that, to evaluate them, get some eyes on it and say, all right, this is a good candidate. Let's go in and try to overlay these roads. Some of these I may find myself reclaiming the road. Recreation Way, for example, is probably one of those roads. It's really kind of gone too far at this point. Any of you have driven down to Parks and Rec or the school department? It's a pretty rough drive through that short road. I'm probably going to put a little more pavement on there as well, so that actually we can get 2 cars by each other as well. So Petty Creek Hill and those roads, actually, I've already done some work on those. But so these are the roads we're going after. Beechwood, I'm actually going to. It's probably gone too far. That one is actually another road that's probably gone a little too far. So I'm probably going to have to reclaim that particular road. That's probably the treatment I'll choose to use on that one. For the most part, I'm going to try to do overlays. And when I say overlays, I just want to get 1 to 1.5 inches of pavement on top of them.
It kind of demonstrates your point. I mean, Beechwood is almost half of the total. When it goes too far, it just becomes, yeah.
Yes, yeah, and I'm also, because we lose the shoulders of the road on that particular road, and that's also causing deterioration of the road. Yes.
Wells District, the section that was done from Patty Creek to Ward Road.
Yep. You're gonna call me out on that short portion there? Rightfully. So our contractor is gonna own that little. So what happened in that particular one, we reclaimed that road, brought it back to a gravel condition. They were to put 2.5 inches of pavement on top of that. For some reason, it got skinny in one of the areas right before the break of the hill. And so we patched that in. We'll call the contractor out. We'll be cutting that pavement back out. We're gonna get the pavement out of it. It won't be at our cost.
Okay, good.
When would you see these starting? Assuming this is all approved.
Once we get them approved, as you see, usually we'll be doing fall and spring. We've got some other projects in the queue right now that we still have to do a little bit of drainage work on Wells District Road. And then we'll be doing the overlays on that. We have to raise all our manholes up. That's another one of the challenges of some of these projects, is all our manholes are currently under pavement. We need to bring every one of those back up. We're talking about 35 manholes on Wells District Road. We've got some other projects, Oak West and Lock, we've got some manholes there, so on and so forth. So these aren't the only projects we're doing, but, we're gonna go after all of them. The overlays are easy. They don't require a lot of my my work or my staff's work to go after those. Any question? Next slide, please. Okay, what is not in the budget? So we initially had put Pier Road in the budget. We are gonna be doing some work on Pier Road, but strictly on the causeway. I'll be paving the causeway, I'll do the final overlay on the causeway this year. However, the work that's gonna be happening between Fisher and the causeway is, what I'd like to do is actually reestablish a good curb reveal on the sidewalk there, possibly get myself 5 feet of sidewalk if I can absolutely get 5. It's a very walkable road, as most of you know, a lot of people love to walk down to the pier. I'd like to get myself just enough width on that sidewalk, and then get myself hopefully enough travel width as well at the same time. So that's my objective, so we'll start with the sidewalk. We'll likely leave it on the same side right now. We want to look at it, see what makes sense for the walking public and also what's existing out there.
Pier Road, we're not doing the final pavement at the pier until when?
The pier, from the causeway, well, I shouldn't say, because I got a gap between the causeway and the pier as well.
No, just the pier, the final pier project.
Yeah,
They delayed their final pavement there, right?
They said they delayed it. I think that's open to discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks. Moving along.
So page 305 sidewalk,
Yeah, so
you're gonna
effectively,
get a picture and talk about it.
yeah, just to reiterate, basically, effectively, we'd like to place a sidewalk between Fisher Lane and Stonehaven, and so that's the sidewalk we'll be focusing on this year.
Okay,
Sorry.
thanks, Eric.
All right, if you go to the next item is normally, we don't have anything for emergency management. Page 307, we're not asking for any funding for recreation this year. Continue. We, in special projects, next slide, we are asking for $25,000 towards the replacement of our streetlights. And this is a long ongoing project. We have been funding it at $50,000, so what's not in the budget is $25,000, since we're only putting $25,000 in the budget.
Okay.
Why was that?
Why is that?
Yeah.
Zero tax impact. It was just meeting that goal.
Trying to hold
Sacrificial lamb.
It was one of
There's a
many.
yeah.
one of many.
Sacrificial lamb, I like that.
Okay.
Speaking of sacrificial lambs, Capital Piers, so page 309. We did not put a pier hoist in the budget, so we are starting with a brand-new pier this spring. We do normally keep an extra hoist available because they go through a lot in that saltwater environment, but right now we do not have that in. Next slide. We also, the harbor master had requested a new boat, and we really do need a new boat, but we do not have that in the budget. So we do have the pier project going on. The town secured EDA grants as well as a state DOT grant and a state working waterfront grant. I am in hopes that at the end of that project, we will have some town funds left in our reserve account, and that we could use that towards the boat. I just can't tell you until that project's complete.
Yep.
Other items. So one thing, just talking about the budget overall, Nicole put this slide together, and I'll let her talk to it.
So this slide is showing with our increasing fuel costs. So what we have currently contracted for fiscal year '26, you'll see in that first column, or the second column, are the prices that we locked in during our bidding process last March. So in the budget for this upcoming year, fiscal year '27, these are the prices that we put in that are currently in your budget book. Like gas at $2.50, diesel at $3, oil at 3, and propane at 2. So when Lori and I were looking at the increasing costs, we thought about putting an additional 50 cents per gallon on each of those prices. And if we did that, then the impact to the general fund budget would be about $19,025. And we do have Maine Power Options. Their bid date was pushed out to April 14th, so we can have an
We
idea of
were-
what they.
Yeah, the bid date was originally this week, and so normally we feel like we can lock it in, but they canceled it. So we'll see if it takes place in April, but it's just with recent events since the budget was proposed. We just wanted to make you aware that that is an area of concern.
Do we need to lock in now? Is that,
No, we can lock in at any time. So even if they went out to bid and we thought the prices were ridiculous, we
because,
could say
if
no.
they bid at war prices, it might be good.
Right,
to-
and
yeah,
we
all
always
right.
make that decision, whether it's better to go with the group state bid or whether it's better to do ourselves.
Good.
And so we analyze that at that time.
Excellent.
The other thing that came up is, there were questions I received about the officer wellness program that did not make it in the budget for fire and police, and so Chief Simeone, since Chief Everett's not here, can you just speak to your side of the equation?
Sure. So what we were hoping to accomplish this year was a start on our officer wellness program. You know, I think it goes without saying, a lot of the public safety jobs, both police and fire, can be very stressful. There's a lot of factors on both sides that, you know, really affect employees. You know, these would be extended shifts, you know, working different shifts, you know, whether it be midnight shift. You know, as a result of that, you know, people aren't able to perhaps, you know, go to the gym, take care of themselves a little bit better. Over time, these start to have effects on employees, and we were really hoping to kind of start putting a few things in place that would help, you know, catch some of these things early on. At least from the police side, we were hoping to implement, by starting this officer wellness program, with sending all the employees to a licensed clinical social worker for one appointment for the year. The individual that we were hoping to send everybody to is really adept at working with first responders. The approach initially is just an educational approach where they show the employees what they should be looking for signs of stress, anxiety, depression, both in themselves and their coworkers. And it was also like a touch point. So this would be, you know, kind of the neutral third party that, you know, the employees could develop a rapport with, that they would, you know, feel comfortable, perhaps having conversations with, and getting that ball rolling so that we could recognize if there's something going on in somebody's life, that we could turn around and probably offer assistance early on. So I don't know if anybody has any questions.
What's the price?
So the cost is $3,000 for the police department. I don't know offhand what it is for the fire department.
5,000 for fire.
5?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, you kind of stole my thunder, because of all the things that you took out of the budget, those were the ones that I caught my attention the most.
Sure.
So I would be supportive of.
And this would
Putting
be
that
a
back in.
capital, or
No,
no?
this is
operate.
operating.
So,
We're just talking
oh,
about it
all
in
right.
capital.
No, I would agree. I think I said that the first time you brought that up, that we could find money for those two things.
We had just received a number of questions, and so we thought we would respond.
Lori, I got a quick question. To go back to the pier, when you were talking about at the end of the pier project, if we've got some coin left about the boat, was that the hoist too? Was it both? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
hoping that we would have enough
Up
left
to
for
both.
both. Nicole and I looked at the numbers again today, and it looks like we could have money left. It's just, I know there's a couple change orders as well coming up.
Yep.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
So I don't know how you do it, but I totally agree that they both should go back in. Do we need to make a motion from the budget board to do that? Or?
Well, why don't we wait till the end?
Okay.
And then we'll talk about things. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So we are moving on to other budgets. So page 107 is the Conservation Commission.
107?
107.
Way back.
Yep, under General
Go
Government.
backwards. One of the most confusing charts.
Yep.
So the funding here in the Conservation Commission is for pesticide testing. So they were doing some baseline testing at various locations. Once, you know, they have a rain event and they send those tests away to see what kind of chemicals are in those, and, you know, we're tracking those over time to see if those increase, what the amounts are, so that we have some science behind that. We don't have anyone from the Conservation Commission here tonight, but Robin was involved in that. If anybody has questions, I'm sure Robin could answer those questions.
So we're just keeping it, we're keeping it,
Right now, I'm
everything,
keeping
we're
it the way it
flat.
is. Yep.
Yep, awesome.
I think that's important for continuity, and that's what we're doing.
So the next budget is on page 179, and Mr. Stockman is going to review the CHEMS budget. So that's under your Public Safety tab. And so on 179, you see the financial report for the request of $330,000. On page 180 and 181, 182, 183, 84, there's some additional data. So there's their CHEMS budget in more detail and some information about their calls.
Thank you. I'm Jim Stockman, and I'm the chair of the board of CHEMS. And this is one of those times that I stand up here and I'd like to thank all of you who have used our services over the years, but it seems to be not exactly fun. So when you need us, it's not fun. And we are not part of the town. We are a nonprofit, and this is the slide of our volunteer board. And other than that, we are really driven by payroll. So next slide, please. CHEMS has been evolving since 1979 when we started. We do have a 40-year history that we put together for our 40th anniversary, and it's online on our website if you'd like to see the history of CHEMS. But we started out as a volunteer crew, and we would run on revenue from services. That means that if you were transported from here to the hospital, we can then bill you. In 2003, we purchased ambulances through our endowment. We do have an endowment, and we used to buy them every 7 years, but we've now expanded it to 10 to 12-year cycles. In 2002, we began a per diem program for paramedics. We still had volunteers back then, but as the state has changed requirements, as people moved out of town, other people moved in, they are not interested in being part of CHEMS and responding. So we are now currently a complete payroll-driven organization. In 2003 to today, we have relied on an appropriation from the town. In 2003, we got $40,000. We're asking for $330,000 this year, which was the same amount we asked for last year. Added per diem, EMT basic and advanced in the second seat. This means that CHEMS has on duty 24/7, 99% of the time, a paramedic and either an EMT basic or advanced in the second seat. In 2016, we became totally fully staffed per diem. this year, we're really very excited to announce that we're embarking on something different that we haven't done. As you see, we used to buy our ambulances from the endowment. This year, we're embarking on a capital equipment acquisition fund. That will be used for the new ambulance and other equipment. And the current ambulance was arrived in town about 2019. We get 10 years out of it. And our problem for our ambulance is that it sits there and doesn't go out. So it ages because it's not used. Places like Saco, their ambulances die in a year or something because of the amount of calls. We're averaging about, as you can see from the handout that you have in your packet, about 400 calls a year. On page 183, shows our call volume since 2021 to 2025. So we are embarking on a new capital campaign. Next slide, please. One of the issues for all people, employers today, is retention and recruitment. And so we've done some things. We had trouble finding people for the weekends. So we took the main EMS stabilization and sustainable grant program and used that to pay additional money for weekends. We pay for experience. And remember, we're unique in that the people who come to CHEMS are only doing medical. And many of our people really enjoy not having to do the fire. Many of them work full-time other places and then come to us on their, quote, off time. We also pay longevity bonuses based on 3-year increments of service, and we pay extra for, I think it's Thanksgiving, Christmas, holidays like that. Some of the mandated programs that are in our budget this year is $6,500 for the paid family and medical leave and the earned paid leave program. So there's about $19,000 that is mandated from the state. Next slide, please. Changes for 2026. We have had a subscription service. This is for people who use our service more than once. They give us the money up front, and what happens for the most part is the cost of our service is covered by let me preface that. 75% of our calls are for people over 60. And so consequently, Medicare, Medicaid, some program pays for so much of that that we have no control over what that amount is. Then private insurance takes over for the next part of it. And then the last part of it, the patient is responsible for that amount of money that they accrued. And so with our subscription program, that remainder of what the patient would cover, we write off. And that gives us money, about 5% of our budget, but that's 5% money in the bank that we can use for operations. We're also very proud of the fact that we're working on an update to our website, and the new address is there on the slide. Next slide, please. Looking ahead, this is a discussion about all the programs that we're working on in order to build up our capital equipment fund for a new ambulance. Please note that a new A1 is $500,000 that we budgeted. Oh, by the way, you need to order that 3 or 4 years ahead of time before you can even see it. So we're getting close to that. The $250,000 is for equipment, like the power lift stretcher. Click ahead, please. This is the Life Pack 35. That's $75,000. Wow. Now that's a very important piece of equipment in our ambulance because it's a monitor, it's as you can see, everything. Our current one is at its end of life. The problem is, like everything else, we don't have the support of the manufacturer anymore. And please give us your money because we're not supporting it. So go back to the previous slide. So looking ahead, the goal was about $750,000, and you can see that we're doing the $500,000 for the ambulance and $250,000 for the equipment. We have 100% board participation in this fund. We have private individuals already pledging $45,000. We have additional, we're going to do programs in the summertime. This is all really new for CHEMS to be out trying to do this. When we achieve this, I think the next major fundraising that we need to do will be for our endowment that we are chipping into or taking more chunks out as we go. And that might be our next capital campaign after we achieve this campaign here will be to increase our endowment. We're working with a lot of different organizations and we're very excited about this. And you're really the first people to see a public presentation of what we're doing. Next slide, please. Thank you. This is just a very quick slide that shows our expenses in 24-25. Revenue on services, that's actually what we took in. We had $300,000 from the town. And so the rest of the $250,000, $257,000 was done through donations, subscriptions, fundraising, other avenues of trying to get money in to help us. The fiscal 2026, which is what you're looking at to propose, you can see again $266,000 that is paid by the generosity of past and present residents of Kennebunkport. The past being that money is in our endowment. And that very quickly, folks, is what we're about. All ambulance services in the state of Maine and in the country are all in trouble in terms of what we can get from the services, what we can get from the insurance people, and as you know, in northern New England, a lot of companies have just gone out of business because there isn't enough revenue coming in. Any questions, please?
I'm curious, have you reached out to the business community? Because I took a look at the financials here and it seems individual donations. Have you gotten support from the business community in Kennebunkport?
There are we've identified three different businesses. One is the owners of the property, one is the businesses themselves, and many times we have people giving us money as individuals as part of our biannual canvassing for money. So some of that money comes, so I'm not sure how to answer it and to say, oh yeah, that's from this business versus, oh, that's from the individual.
Yeah, I'm not asking for particular businesses,
know
I'm
that,
just
but
curious that.
yes.
I would say, though, that, I would say speaking from the CHEMS board perspective, that's one of the areas that we've been trying to knock on the doors more. Because when you think about it, what the CHEMS team does is they support all the visitors going to the, and you know, what Jim didn't say is part of the issue with the revenue stream is we do a lot of showing up at people's houses, and if they don't take transport, CHEMS doesn't get paid. And as you can see from the CHEMS bus, we have tons of equipment on, and so people are getting vital services, getting taken care of, but if we don't move a body to a hospital, we don't get the pay. And so that actually plays into a lot what happens into the service industry in town. So that's part of our drive for the campaign, that's part of our drive for awareness, and if you get the thing in the mail,
Yes.
Can I,
feel free to.
Jim, can I just ask, you, so FY '25, your actual and subscriptions, which I think is a great program.
Yeah.
That's an endorsement. You got 40,000. This year for FY '26, you're only at 8. Is that just that the numbers haven't been updated, or are we really running low on the subscriptions for this
It
year?
has to do with when we put together these numbers was pre-January.
Before you sent the thing.
Our subscription program
It's a
runs
different-
on a yearly basis, calendar year, I'm sorry, versus our fiscal year. So you're looking at our program, we haven't even sent out the letters. So that is why that number appears to be what it is. And also understand, revenue on services is really, for us, we have sometimes receivables out, not 120 days, 360 days before we see the money. And we can't go, if we go and we turn that bill over to our collection agency, we get pennies on the dollar. And so that's why the subscription works for us, because we can get the money up front and use that for our operations. Anybody else?
Thanks, Jim.
No, thanks.
Thank you.
I thank you, I thank you. And please, I hope you don't need our service.
Me too. Used it a couple of times last year.
If you go to page 219, under health and welfare, we will go over the social service agencies. So the social service agencies are, those recommendations are handled by the budget subcommittee, who meets on those. And you can see some of the changes in those requests this year. Some of the agencies did not request funding because they are going through a reorganization since federal funding has changed drastically. And others, the social service agencies asked, or the subcommittee recommended an increase. If you go under the tab nonprofit requests near the end, there is the memo from the Social Services Subcommittee, and all the applications that we received and that they reviewed. I don't know if anybody from the subcommittee wants to speak to it.
It was fun.
It was fun.
Yeah.
We're glad to answer any questions.
Right.
In my mind,
Confidence in those that did it. So,
Yep, looks good.
yep.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you for your.
Thank you.
So next we will be reviewing the shade tree budget. Is John here?
I don't see him.
I don't see him. Eric oversees the shade tree budget with the shade tree committee.
Come on, Eric.
So, as you can see, the proposed budget there,
Page.
oh, I'm
What-
sorry,
what page
page
are we-
249, under Public Works. So the proposed budget is fairly flat. They take care of the shade trees, and that takes care of, oh, Dan's gonna go.
You okay?
Yeah. Fire on Ocean Avenue.
Oh.
But the Shade Tree Committee did request an additional $6,000 that did not make it in the budget. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, there were, I mean, we're seeing a lot of requests as of late for having more tree trimming or tree removal such on the tag trees throughout the town, so there was a request to do that. There was also some adjustments in the budget that basically, I think, we're gonna do a little less treatment, and we're gonna try to shift some of that burden back to trimming as well. So that's really was the adjustment around that budget.
But just a quick question, I mean, so the budget has always been about $600, $700, but the actuals for both years are over budget. How are we covering those if the actuals are coming in over budget in the last 2 years?
I don't think the budgets themselves have been going over. There may have been some budget adjustments, but the overall budget, I believe, would have been.
I was just looking at the actuals in the Shade Tree Committee.
So 2025 actual shows a $50,000 expenditure and a budget of 44. They did have a carry forward, and that carry forward isn't
Right, that's right.
reflected in the 2025 budget.
Okay.
Yeah, that has to do with the canopy grant.
Okay.
Yes. Sir.
Eric, is this still enough for us to be Tree City, USA?
Yes, it is. Yeah, we continue to be that.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
So if you go to page 255, this is cemeteries, and we have a very active cemetery committee that takes care of all the cemeteries. The largest amount, or not the largest, but one of them, is down at the bottom, the Arundel Cemetery. So that is the only active cemetery, and we pay a portion of the Arundel Cemetery's cost. They bill us each year. The other costs are for the mowing of the cemeteries and maintenance from staff. And then the services and miscellaneous piece are what the cemetery committee oversees. And of course, this is not enough for them to take care of everything they would like to. So they prioritize those cemeteries and grave sites that have veterans first. And then they also look at those that are most visible from the road, and they make choices, and they work magic as best they can with this funding. Any questions?
Cemetery.
If not, we're gonna go to library. So on page 273, under recreation, is the Graves Library budget. And you will see on page 273, the software financials. And then the following pages are a letter from the library director and their budget in more detail. So I'll turn it over to Sarah and Alan.
Right, thank you. Thank you very much. So I'm Sarah Vanderschaff, and I'm joined by Alan Lamb. I'm the president of the Board of Trustees for the library, and Alan is the treasurer for the library and on the Board of Trustees. And we're both in these positions as volunteers, and I know many of you in this room have also been members of the board in previous times. So we're here instead of our library director, Loretta Swift, because she had a baby last month, and she is doing well now, but was at Children's Hospital with the baby for several weeks. But they're doing very well now and happily at home. And she has left us in excellent hands. So we're presenting the budget request that she put together prior to going on maternity leave. But the reason you have me and Alan is because that's where she is. So we can go to the next slide, please. I know many of you read the letter already from Loretta. Which really got to the heart that in the town's generosity in investing in the library is an investment in the community. Next slide, please. And the mission of the library, obviously free and equitable access to information, lifelong learning for all ages, workforce and small business support, and it is a safe and welcoming space for all. But I would want to add that the board has thought about the mission of the library, and recently we've really thought that the overall theme is to enrich the lives of all we serve. And we serve quite a number of people, and it's a privilege to do so. And in that mission, this photo shows one of the most, I think, important parts of the library is what it can provide for children, youth, and families, especially those even younger than the ones pictured there who haven't even started school.
And as you know, the Mother's Wing, which is our wonderful community room in addition, the idea was that mothers and fathers, to be fair, are often the first to expose their children to learning. And we've seen multiple generations have done that at Graves Library, and so often we even see multi-generations coming to use the library, grandchildren, their parents who were once children there, and then, of course, the grandparents now. The other big part of our mission, which I am excited to talk about, is our ability, because of the generous support of the town and our patrons in the community, to really be a place of bringing interesting discussion to the community, sometimes through guest authors, through guest speakers. And this year in particular, we are very excited to welcome the documentarian Ken Burns to town. And we are also going to be utilizing, again, through community effort, the high school, so that instead of a small venue, we can have 400 seats. And he'll be interviewed by Rob Caldwell, who I know many of you see on TV, so he's kind of a celebrity too. But then you're also the first to hear that we just got, and I think this is going to reach a different crowd, the author of the new book on Larry Bird, which you've probably seen in the Boston Globe, called Heartland. And we're really excited to bring him to town in August. It's free. We're going to have it upstairs in the library. Hopefully we can get the large cutout of Larry Bird that you all see in Bennett's. But, that's the kind of thing the library can do. And we are a little library, small but mighty, and punch above our weight. Next slide, please. By the numbers, considering we are a town of about 3,600, but the library, of course, serves people in by its charter, essentially. It's open and serves people in the community, not just in Kennebunkport. But 50,000 annual visitors, 27,806 items circulated last year, 5,955 library card holders, 482 programs offered last year, many of them with Miss Terry. Our children's programming blossoms in the summer, but it also takes place in these cold winter days and spring days, and it's a cozy place for people to gather. We had more than 8,000 people attend programs last year, and 731 one-on-one technology help sessions. And this is really important. If you've ever walked into the business center, you've probably seen Jennifer there, and she works with you. If you can't figure out your iPhone, your computer, whatever it is, it's free. And that's what the town's generosity helps us provide. You don't have to go to the mall and try to find someone to pay for. She's there to help. She's even gone into people's cars and helped connect their phones to their car in the parking lot of the library. So, we're very proud of the staff and their efforts. Next slide, please. Now, fortunately, I have Alan here to go over the numbers.
Well, the town really provides an important part of our total budget. It represents about 39% of the total operating expenses that we incur each year. And what it does for us, it's really an anchor that enables us to leverage the resources that we have, which is basically people and facility to some extent, and develop programs that are quite valuable. Sarah talked about the children's program. I don't know how you put a return on investment on the value that the kids get preschool. They're coming in with their parents, and they get terrific education from programs like that. But what we do is we have a variety of other things that we have. Special fundraising events. This year we're going to have a garden show. We have that every other year, and that provides significant revenue to us. We do have an endowment, which represents about 18% of our total budget. We have the annual appeal, which is where we do our annual fundraising, 22%. And we have the book sales in the basement of the library, which is 5%. And then we have some other fundraising activities as well. We sell hats, for example. So, but that's not big. But let's go to the next slide, please. So I was talking about return on investment again. I don't know how you measure the return on investment that you get from kids coming into the library, and they don't have their iPhones because they don't have iPhones yet. This is a group of basically preschooler kids. And it provides a strong foundation for their future education. We've had adults come in and say, I was one of the preschoolers who was involved in some of your programs, and it still has a real impact on people who have been there. Supports local businesses and fosters community connections. So I think the fact that we're able to get someone like Ken Burns in is one way that we are able to leverage the funds that the town provides to, it really raises it's a strategic move to raise our stature in the community. That's really what it does for us. Next slide, please. So our request this year is level funding. We asked for $215,000 last year, and that's what we're asking for again this year. We're also doing some things internally to try and restructure our financial structure a little bit. The way we were structured up till now was after COVID, we needed liquidity. We needed to be sure we were relatively risk-free, and it's time now that we can make some changes that will increase our return on investment even more through our endowment and other sources. So next slide, please. And this is where Sarah finishes up.
Yeah. And I just want to make sure to clarify one thing. When Alan talks about bringing in authors like Ken Burns, that's a fundraiser. And, you know, when we do bring in authors such as that, we're not paying them to come. I know some organizations have to pay speaker fees. That's not how this we're not putting the tax dollars that we get from the town to do that. It's generally the reputation of past authors that we've had helps us get the next author and so forth. And the idea of coming to Kennebunkport, you know, and enjoying the community we have here is a big draw. So we are very privileged in that sense. Just to conclude, you know, our historic library was founded more than 100 years ago with basically some ideas by citizens. They wanted to find a space and they wanted to donate books, and they made it happen. So we're stewards of that, and we're grateful for your support.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Oh, any questions? Sorry, any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So if you go to page 277, that is the Cape Porpoise Library, and Dick Smith is here to present that information.
I'm sure there's nobody in this room that needs to see this picture to know where the Cape Porpoise Library is. But it's kind of a special place to a lot of people, particularly in Cape Porpoise. Now, the library itself, next slide, please. This is where the traditional activities of the library take place, borrowing books. And what you're looking at here, now it's a very compact space, and we make maximum use of it. On the left-hand corner is a children's corner, and this is where parents come with very young children to read stories with them, and so on. The library has had a number of challenges this year that we've had to deal with, and will have impact in the coming year. One of which, and Graves Library had the same challenge, the wholesaler on which most libraries around the country have relied went belly up, went out of business. Now, that wasn't announced in advance, these rarely are, but it did restrict the flow of books that had been ordered. So we were not able to supply the demand that some people were expecting us to. In the latter quarter of the year, there were sporadic ability to get the newly issued books that people had come to expect. We have fortunately engaged with a company in Kennebunk who has done a great job stepping in. Their prices are a little bit higher. Their selections are not quite as broad, but it's going to work. Our next challenge is that our library director announced that she wanted to retire and become a full-time grandmother. How dare she? We are very, very fortunate, thank you, Kai, for finding a woman in town who is a resident of Goose Rocks Beach, who is a retired librarian from a private school in Massachusetts, and has decided that she didn't want to be that retired. So actually, she is joining us as we speak. She's coming in this month. And I guess the other challenge is that, as several of you have noted in earlier presentations, costs are going way up in virtually everything. The price of stamps, 76 cents now. Well, you know, our annual letter of solicitation, we buy those stamps, send them out. We get a very good response from that. We rely on it. But then we have to buy the stamps again to send thank you notes. And that, you know, and, you know, the oil prices are up. We've had colder weather, and we've had more snow. And, you know, we enjoyed being on the warm side for the past couple of years. But, you know, these are all impacts. But and for that reason, we're not able to request a flat budget from last year, but the budget that we are proposing includes a greater than ever challenge of self-funding than we have ever achieved in the past. Not quite sure how we're going to do it, but we are. And although the scarcity or the interruption of flow of new books into the library has now been resolved, the down period of that did give us fewer volumes, and it affected, I think we had about 100 people, 100 fewer visits this year than we did prior year. But the flip side of that, if you would, is that we have been running special programs, a lot of those related to kids on early release day and so on, giving them activities, workshop activities and so on. And they're the future patrons of our library. Anything we can do to engage the kids, as the Graves Library has also recognized, that's important to all. So, next. And here is another of the workshop groups. I'm not sure, I think this one might have been making leprechaun traps. I didn't know there was such a thing, but at any rate. So those activities which are not within the normal operating hours of the library, but we had attendance in those of about 850 people across the year. Now, this is not just kids. This is kids and book clubs and other non-core hour library activities. But that's almost a 40% increase from what we've had in the past, and has been part of what keeps the Cape Porpoise Library the heart of Cape Porpoise. Do you have any questions?
I just want to say my granddaughter, the school bus picks up my grandkids right in front of Atlantic Hall. So my granddaughter, who's in the first grade, she's just learning how to read, and she loves the library. She's in there all the time, taking out books and what have you. And when they were preschool, they went to Graves Library and loved Miss Terry.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thanks, Dick.
So next on page 281, we have the Parsons Way budget. So as I'm sure you're all aware, Parsons Way is the land that was donated along Ocean Avenue from Colony Beach down to the Bush compound. And that was donated to the land with the understanding that it would remain open and free for scenic views. So each year, we have to budget to make sure that we eradicate the vegetation and mow down and maintain it so that those vistas can continue to be seen. So rather a simple budget.
Perfect.
If we go to page 293, this is what we call our miscellaneous agencies. So this includes the Memorial Day event. So the American Legion puts that on, but the town also, by statute, has to contribute to markers for all veterans in all cemeteries in town. And so we do pay for that, and then the American Legion makes sure those are distributed. The Dock Square Monument, so the Seacoast Garden Club, takes care of the plantings and makes sure those are done on a seasonal basis. And we maintain the actual monument, but they do the plantings. 4th of July, that is a shared event with the town of Kennebunk. Kennebunk handles the contract and the fireworks. We pay half. The fireworks budget has remained flat for many, many years. They came in this year with a larger increase, and I asked them to try to do that over a 2-year step instead of in 1 year, and they agreed. So this is an increase of $12.50, and you'll see another increase of $12.50 next year. The Southern Maine Veterans Memorial is veterans, and as it says, there are 21 veterans and spouses from Kennebunkport, and they request a donation to maintain that as well. And then the social service is the senior center over in Lower Village, and that serves senior citizens in both our communities. They have requested a small increase, and their request has been flat for many years. Yes.
Is that the same as we did with the committee?
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
same number, okay, it seemed like the same number.
It's just that we handle it under miscellaneous instead of social.
No, it's the same number.
So are there any questions about those?
Nope.
That's what it is.
That's what this is.
So with that, we have covered the entire budget. As I did note to you at the beginning of the meeting, we do have concerns about the fuel costs and whether or not we should be addressing those, so we did give you a number on that. As Chief Simeone talked about, he is requesting that since he received a grant for $50,000 for the security renovations, of whether the 47 for the access control that was cut from the proposed budget could be supplemented in for the 50,000 we no longer need in the budget, so we're looking for feedback on that. And then I know in some previous discussions, we had some discussion about the support of special events in terms of the town's overtime costs. And so I know there have been a lot of questions raised about that, and we've gotten a lot of feedback, and I believe the board has an update.
Can I just ask a question? Sure.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
So with the contingency we have, without me going to try to find it, what is the number that we have in the overall budget for contingency?
So it's under Selectmen's contingency, it's at $50,000.
So could you cover the fuel cost increases in that potentially, or no?
We could potentially. The other thing is we have that legal budget that we're wondering whether that's enough for. So it could potentially cover, it's just a matter of we don't know what else is out
There's
there.
a lot of other contingencies.
Well, I
that-
know, I always say-
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So I'm not saying it's
Yeah.
impossible, it's just.
Just curious.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Certainly available. Yeah, there are actually two items that I would like to discuss with the budget board, because it does affect monies that we'll be needing either to or provide back to the budget. One is the busing issue, and the other is our relationship with, financial relationship with Prelude. But can we just talk the bus first, just get that one, because I think this is the simplest one. Last time we were together, I mentioned that we were looking as an experiment and as a step forward for the town to take responsibility of managing the buses, that we were going to have an individual paid by the town with ticketing authority be there to greet and to manage the bus flow. That individual would have been a considerable burden on our budget, probably on the order of $50,000 by the time we offset it with what we were paying to the chamber. It still was a significant amount of money. Since that time, just in this past week, the town staff has done truly a remarkable job in identifying and customizing a portal for our website that will allow us to start a reservation system and be able to collect fees from the buses as they come. These fees will most probably, I think we can count on them. Count, wrong way. We certainly have hopes that they will cover that $50,000 fee that would have been something we'd have to work on. So I think that's all good news. To that end, though, we do need to just have the board approve yet another change. This is the last possible change because we're out of time on our commercial operation for bus tours. This is part of our ordinance on the busing. And what has changed here is to add on the definition what a commercial bus visit is. That's just to define it as one drop-off of passengers and then a subsequent pickup of passengers. Then it allows for the buses to need to make a reservation rather than just a notification. The reservations will be made again through the portal that has been found and customized by town staff between 9 and 6, which is the same, no arrival departure more than 20 minutes. Part of this activity has been to work closely with Kennebunk. We know we have one. We're hoping to acquire 2 spots on the west side of our bridge to be able to accommodate buses during the next upcoming summer. So actually the whole year. So we'll have at least 4 and really 6 if you count the 2 overflow spots out on Route 35, Port Road. So that's all good news. Yeah.
So what happens with the bus that shows up that wasn't in the list?
If they're not on the list, what we have done is we'll give them probably a warning on the first time. And then we will charge them twice the fee and allow them to park if we can find a spot for them to park. If not, we would give them a map and say, take a circle, we've got a spot here, we can look at what our plans are. The app or the portal that's been developed has an app that can go on the individual who is doing the logistics. It tells them exactly what slots are open, who's expected, where they are, and he can work quickly with that bus to have them just do a loop outside of town, please, and come back at a certain time where we would have a spot for them.
So the only reason why I ask it, again, doing bus duty for a year for the chamber, not a lot, but several buses show up, they didn't even know they were coming.
Yeah.
So, and they don't know any of the rules, and they're the ones who are probably, for the most part, will be parked on Spring Street. So I just want to make sure that chief and folks know that's going to happen, and we have a plan for that.
We well understand it, right. And then we'll give them a map and tell them where they can go for the overflow. If the overflow's full, then they keep driving around and try it again. but it's gonna charge them 2x to be able to park.
Because the ones that come out of Portland, for the most part, are good,
Oh, yeah,
you know.
we'll know from
they're
them.
good people.
The tour bus, or the cruise buses, we're gonna know.
They're fine.
And same with New England Transportation, there are a number of companies we're working with. But you're right, it's what we call the rogue buses that.
Change my wording for that.
Yeah, yeah.
I
So
still refer them to the.
Yeah, don't.
Should ask Alan if there's any.
yeah. And Alan, do you have any questions on what you see here? Mind your mute. I'm gonna assume, but I'm sure he'll be back.
Hello,
He-
did you say something?
Yeah, I was just curious.
He just woke up.
We're talking on the buses, as you know, and just wanted to know if you had any questions or concerns before we, as a board, accept these updates to the ordinance.
No, I like the updates. I think they're
So
good.
I
Yep.
just have one quick question. I
Come.
thought on the penalties, 1 and 2, we were gonna do 2x and 4x.
2x,
Where am I looking? So we still have
Yeah.
the dollar amount. I thought we were gonna go to 2x
Under
this
F.
way.
yep, that's a true statement. That change did not get made, thank you, good catch.
No, it's.
No, it's there. No, any commercial bus arriving without an existing reservation will be subject to a fee 4 times the normal rate.
What
So-
did you guys give us?
that?
Where'd you see us?
Not on my paper.
Not on my paper.
Where's
I
that
got
written
the good
down?
one.
Where's that written down?
It's written down, I'm sorry, it should have been on one of them you got. May
I've
have
got
gotten
like
older.
2 that are,
got two.
that says 100 and 200.
Hey, I got 200 and 400.
But this is still 100 and, this is still numbers down here.
That's the,
Well, those are the fines.
penalties.
Those are the fines.
Oh, the penalties stay,
There's a-
okay.
Oh, yeah, we still need the fines so
Okay,
that
so the
it-
penalties are different than what it would pay to park.
Yeah, that's what
Okay.
Amy was basically pointing out. is
Okay,
that,
got it.
yeah, the 2x is not a fine, it's
Got it.
just a fee.
Got it. Perfect.
4 times the normal rate, which would be $50. So
50,
4
so
4 times would be
$200.
$200. Okay.
Yep.
Start.
Are we good?
So you should just clarify, this is not you adopting this ordinance, this is
Sorry.
you clarifying the language that we will post so that you will vote on it next week.
That's what I meant to say.
Excuse me, is this the same thing that got distributed last week?
No, it has
This
been
ordinance?
updated.
It has, okay.
We have a copy for you if you would like it.
Great.
Do you want to pass it out to anybody?
All righty, so we are adopting this for moving it forward. So do we need to still adopt it now, or we're just?
Yeah, we need to make sure this is the language you want to put before the public hearing.
Does that need a vote or just a nod?
Yes, it can be either.
Do I have any
Oh.
concerns?
Thank you.
Looks great.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to use this language and pass it forward for,
Second, or David, what do you say?
No, you guys was
First and second, all in favor? Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you, Alan.
Just, John, one follow-up, so we have to go in and do stuff for the budget?
no,
No,
no, because we're gonna, hopefully the reservation system will,
So you don't have to add the PD.
To the general fund.
to the general.
yeah, that would have come out of the general anyway, so it's just lowering that.
This
that number.
employee, that's got more employees
Yep.
that are gonna be leasing it, so to speak.
Yep.
So let's, moving on to the prelude question. As we know, for many decades now, the town has supported Christmas Prelude as one of Kennebunkport's community events. In doing so, the town developed administrative practices reflected in what was known as a special events policy that did not require Prelude organizers to pay certain permit fees or fully cover the municipal costs associated with the event. Recently, as part of ongoing discussions about public safety, staffing, and the growing scale of large events, the town sought legal counsel to ensure our practices align with our ordinances. Through that review, it became clear that the mass gathering ordinance classifies events such as Prelude as commercial events and requires both a permit fee and reimbursement of municipal costs. The ordinance does not include a provision that would allow these requirements to be waived. In other words, while this special events policy reflects past practices, it is not fully consistent with the governing ordinance. As a result, the town is taking steps to align its practices with the ordinance going forward. This is not about changing the character of Prelude, but about ensuring that public safety needs are appropriately supported, municipal resources are used legally, and that all events are treated fairly and consistently under the same rules. Moving forward, our focus is on applying the ordinance consistently while ensuring Prelude remains a safe, successful event for the community in the years going forward. Do I have any questions?
What's that mean?
What that means is that there is probably about $26,000, which had been coming out of the general fund to support overtime and other expenses associated with the police, fire, and public works that will not need to come out of that fund. So in essence, it's returning about $26K to the budget.
So I guess what I'm a little bit confused is, so the town has benefited a little bit as a result of Prelude as well, cost-wise too.
Sure.
With the parking lot and the craft fair and stuff like that.
Sure.
So doesn't that have something to be factored into that, or can we change the audit?
It's certainly that would need to be a path, is that we're out of time for the June vote, but the ordinance, if it could be amended to reflect that and then sent to the citizens, to the community, our residents, for a vote, absolutely. But right now, the ordinance is crystal clear. I mean,
Do you want to bring
yeah,
the
could you
Can I ask a question on the ordinance, though, just,
Ask Jim,
I
sure.
mean, it says here, commercial gatherings includes the dump parade.
Oh, no, that's the old one.
No, that's the
So,
old.
oh, so the new one, so that's the 80, so that got
Yeah.
removed?
So let's,
There's
if
no
you
dump
scroll
parade
up a little bit for me.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, it also said July 4th.
Scroll down if you would, purpose, and now the definitions is important. So, here is how the ordinance reads today. Here is the definition of a commercial gathering. I'll let you read it.
Well, there's my question, July 4th.
Yep.
So that's a commercial
I
gathering.
wouldn't doubt that was probably put in, I don't know, back in this was originally written in 1986. I don't know if maybe the chamber was doing it or whatever. July 4th surprises me there as well.
Well, I'm just saying, if we're gonna be consistent, we have to be consistent, which means July 4th now all of a sudden becomes a commercial thing too.
Well, it does and it shall be covered.
Right.
I think we do, it's done by
Who's
the
gonna
towns.
pay for it?
The town's already paid for it.
But isn't it a commercial?
But nobody pays the town.
Well, it actually says the fireworks display
Yeah.
is a commercial event. It doesn't say all of the 4th of July activities are commercial events. So specifically, you could strip out the cost involved with lighting and exhibiting fireworks as a commercial event. But the rest of the festivities are not a commercial activity.
You know,
But that's unfortunately what the law says.
that's something we can discuss.
And
The piece-
circuses.
The piece that's there, winter prelude, any kind of a craft fair, circuses, similar events.
But you just changed an ordinance with the buses, right?
That's a
So this is an
I understand that, but I mean, the point is, we've just changed an ordinance.
This
Why
is
can't
an
we change
existing,
it?
because this is not something I want to snap, but this is, how many times we've been around this thing and the process it
This is the
takes to
first
get.
time I heard about it.
Not the
Right.
buses?
No,
No, exactly, I'm just saying it
Yeah.
takes time, Bob.
I understand,
So,
I understand that, but
so the difference is that the bus is a traffic regulation and state statute, it lets the board amend that. The mass gathering ordinance is not, and it needs to go through town meeting.
So everything that goes to, everything that's going to the town meeting right now is in legal review. So that's like, if you look at our, out of legal review. So it's getting ready to go for the reviews for public hearings.
There's absolutely no wiggle room
Right.
with the ordinance. I mean, to not comply with it means you're not complying with the law, which I
We've
don't
been doing
think.
that for how many years?
Well, that doesn't forgive future,
I understand that.
that doesn't forgive future non-compliance.
I just,
I'm not happy. Okay?
Well, what
But
part of the law don't you want to comply with then? Why don't we just go
I'm
through
not-
and
I-
highlight the parts we don't like, and we just move through
I'm
it?
just saying, in reading this now, I got that the prelude was in it, but I'm also seeing July 4th, and I'm also seeing Circus Schmirkus in here. So I just think if we're going to be consistent and say that the prelude can't be included, then you're going to have to say the other things are. I don't like it. I'm just saying,
Right,
if
so
we're
I
going to
think-
be consistent,
Right, and so we
we
heard-
gotta
yeah.
get some budget money.
I
back for
agree.
that.
So
We can
what we heard last week, or one of the other meetings, is that Circus Mercy is not happening this year. They already came forward and told us that, and I think we just have to understand and get some legal guidance on what is in or what is out along the July 4th.
And this, again, these were set as examples at the time this was written,
Right.
Yeah.
but they're there. The
No,
ones that
I'm
still
not
exist,
I'm not
exist.
arguing that the ordinance is the ordinance, we need to follow the ordinance. But I do think, I'm curious if anyone's got any comments in the audience or wants to talk about this, because I just think moving forward, we need to probably figure something out, because I don't think this is exactly where a lot of people want it to go. And here we are.
And here we are.
So I don't want, I mean, I'm happy to listen to someone else talk before.
Alan's talking, but he's muted. I don't have a mic to tell him that.
Alan, you're muted.
Alan, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
I really would like to be able to see us move forward with trying to get this ordinance changed. That's what I'd like to see.
Well, and that's certainly appropriate. It needs to then, we need to decide how we want the wording. We need to pass it through legal. And then it would go to either the June, if it could be in time, which I doubt, or the November election for the residents to vote up or down. So you bet that can happen, but that's not where we are right now.
I just wanted to mention it, bring it up forward, so we have some
Yep,
time to
yep.
think about this.
You bet.
Because I'm not happy about it either.
Hi, Tina Hewitt-Gordon from the No Nantum and the Business Association. Just a quick question. So what is the deadline to have the language submitted for the June vote for an ordinance change?
So you would need to vote next week, because the warrant has to be signed by April 9th, and next week's the last meeting before the warrant signing.
So we'd have 1 week to get this,
And then we'd have to go to public hearing.
Right, then you need
we'd have to announce for public hearing.
Today.
right? So how would we?
Well, the public hearing
So it
would be
depends
later.
if it's on the open town meeting floor or the ballot. If it's on the ballot, you would need a public hearing. If it's on the open town meeting, you don't. But you're talking about days, because your agenda goes out Monday.
And we gotta advertise it.
Or the option is to
Well,
go to
the other
November.
thing is like we talked about with legal, we don't want to slam dunk something, right? We want to make sure that we would take some time and get this done if we're going to do it. Because the board, this is new news, right? This is new news as of this afternoon.
This is found this afternoon.
Right, so this is new news this afternoon, and I think.
With legal, but-
With legal, and we have to think through, and the board's gonna have to come to some kind of agreement too. The board hasn't discussed this.
Who writes the ordinance change? Is that the select board that does that?
Depends on the groups, but for this one, it'll probably be the select board.
With input.
Thank you.
Yep. You got it.
Yes.
Susan Graham, is your discussion, I don't hear very well,
the discussion is whether to change the definitions in the commercial gathering. Is that what you're talking about? Because, just to respond to the gentleman on the budget board, the town does not make revenue from the parking lot during Prelude. Every year, the board assigns the revenue of the parking lot money during Prelude to a nonprofit.
Well,
Am I correct?
half of it, Susan.
Half of it,
half of
okay, half of it. But I think the important section of the ordinance is further down. And it's the one, I didn't bring my paper with me. Can you go down,
Just
David?
scroll down, David, a bit.
Bring out Mike so I can see it. Hold on.
And maybe that's why, no, I mean, I think
that
it's
appropriate?
number
I could see the mouse
6
moving.
or something. I mean, go to another page, keep going.
We do have
Right
extra
in
copies
here.
of the ordinance if anybody wants.
That's what I want right there.
There you are.
Number 1.
These are the
The
fees for the commercial.
charges for costs incurred by the town shall be paid by the applicant. So that's the missing link.
Well, it's
that-
the word shall that makes it mandatory. That's right. That's what we
mandatory.
say.
So, and that's something that's been missing for several years.
Yeah.
So it would be interesting to know the cost to the town to have carried Prelude for all the many years that this mandatory language is in the ordinance and has been ignored by our elected officials.
Thanks.
Just to clarify, this language has been in since 1986, so it's been a long time. I don't know why the practice was different from the ordinance language. I've asked a variety of people to try and get some background, and people have been surprised about the language. But I did go back to 1986 to see if it was in the original draft, and it was.
Yes.
Hi there. I know that the tone in the, Sarah Vanderschaff. I live at 17 Main Street. And I didn't come here to talk about Prelude. In fact, I do want to say that when speaking with Tina last year as a resident about the garbage, she listened and I was appreciative of the conversation. And but what I do want to point out, and obviously everybody knows that I asked brought up the bus situation. And it relates to this, which is that we have ordinances that have been on the books, and we have a comprehensive plan that was voted on by by residents. It's, 670 pages or something. And there's a lot in there, but it gets lost. And then when we bring up things, it's as if, we didn't know we had it's like we're debating on things that had been voted on by voters or already articulated in the comprehensive plan. And one of them, and I want to thank the select board because I know you've gotten a lot of heat, and I know that this topic, as it relates to tourism, is extremely painful, and I've learned a lot, and I hope that we as a community can talk to each other. But one of the things that struck me was that the comprehensive plan, which was voted on by voters, does talk about a lot of the challenges that are now coming to the fore. They're clearly articulated, and the plan highlighted challenges such as the influx of day trippers, interstate motor coach tour companies, and cruise ship passengers, which have made the season busier. Opportunities include managing these challenges to benefit the community without sacrificing quality of life. It goes on and on and on, which is to say that the comprehensive plan has talked about these pressure points. They're not new. And this select board has had to address them head on, and I know it has been painful for us as a community because we haven't done that before. We haven't even followed our own code, as this points out. So my only comment here is that I don't actually think that the residents and businesses are at odds. What I think has happened, and forgive me, I could be wrong, but from the research I've tried to do, there are bigger parties that make a lot of money out of selling Kennebunkport. And they are from what I can tell, the Maine Office of Tourism can sell Kennebunkport because all the money from Kennebunkport goes back to the state. And then it trickles down. And it's not to say that the businesses don't make revenue, and I know how important it is to make payroll, and I know that volume can help them. I'm not denying that. But the truth is, the town pays a burden. And the fact of subsidizing businesses, not because they want a handout, but because of the structure of revenue share, creates this. And there's some big, big companies that are benefiting. It's not our small businesses, it's not our residents, it's not our town. But if you trace the partners, and I'm talking about 501c6s, the lobbying groups, the Maine Office of Tourism gives a lot of power to, and the Maine Beach Association, which is really a consortium of the York County Chambers of Commerce, which is a 501c6. So basically, we have lobbying groups that have a lot of power, and their partners are, and this is on their website, Maine Tourism Association, Cruise Maine, and the Maine Motor Coach Network. So why is it when we have a town meeting, all those people show up and try to tell us how to run our own town? It's because of that. And they're making money, and we are divided, and we don't have to be divided. And I try to do my research. I'm not sure it's perfect, but from what I have figured out, there are special interests, and they're dividing us.
I appreciate that. And you also, when you look at the money that comes from all those taxes that are paid up to the state, 5% is put in a pool, but only 0.1% of that comes to us. So it's a heck of a lot of taxes that's sent up to the state, and very little comes back to try to help the town infrastructure support and uphold a lot of these expenses.
I don't know enough about everything, the facts to agree or disagree, but I think it's a great point out. But back to the statute or the ordinance, I think we have a statute. It's been in the books for 40 years, right? I hate to say that because I was already out of college in '86, but it's been in the books for 40 years. It's probably a good time to go back and look at the statute and decide, is this what we want? Does it meet, it was great in 1986, but is it really what we want now in 2026? That raises another question, that there's probably a lot of statutes on the books that need to be reviewed at some point. So there's a small piece of this, and that's this particular statute or ordinance, and we can deal with this for the November ballot. I think, frankly, this is something that should be put on the ballot and not just handled at a town meeting, because there's a lot of people that want to vote, and the town meetings typically don't have a lot of people there voting. So I think this is, at least my position is, this is something that needs to go on the general ballot in November. And I would honorably and respectfully submit to John that maybe we want to take a look at some method with the staff and the resources to go through the statutes and determine, if this was written in 1726, maybe it's time to take a look at it in 2026 and determine whether, the large diameter of a motor coach wheel going through a rutted road, whatever is still relevant to the current day. So I think there's a short-term problem, and I think there's a short-term issue, and there are other long-term issues. But taking a look at what we have to work with is going to be important. And I do agree with Sarah. These growth plans are voluminous, big documents, and there's a lot of information in there. And maybe we need to take a look at making that a little more user-friendly with some way to bite-size it for general consumption. But
yeah, please, Elizabeth.
I will speak as a citizen rather than as a member of the Budget Committee. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah.
So I'm not new to town. I've been here for 8 years, but I'm newly invested in town meeting. I've recently retired and getting very involved and really educating myself. And at the meeting that we had last Thursday, I came away feeling very disheartened because it's clear to me that everybody is trying to do the very best that they can for both the community, the residents, as well as the business community. And my background is in human resources for years in large organizations. And historically, when I hear two different groups of people coming forward with very different facts, with very different perceptions, and feeling like they don't have a voice for both town residents as well as the business community, it feels to me like an opportunity to step back and to take some time and focus on relationship building and a common understanding of what the facts are. So a lot of numbers are thrown around, which may or may not have been accurate. Everybody had their little sheets. It was clear to me that a lot of organizing had been done prior to that meeting, and a lot of our ability to engage in the conversation, the train was already sort of off the tracks. So I would hope that we would be able to step back in the way that the select board has done with the busing, to really step back and take a pause and to say, what is it that we need to do long-term that's in best interest for the community? And what is the interim plan involving all of the interested parties to try to land in a place where everybody feels like they are participating, so that we can bring the temperature down just a little bit. And again, we pride ourselves on our civil discourse. We really want to create an environment where people who make their livelihoods off of the revenue that they generate through Prelude, as well as the community members who I know you're hearing from, Mary Beth, that don't feel like they're heard or have a voice in the way that Prelude has taken over the town. I think there's room over time to build a different kind of coalition with time for conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
I would like to agree with that. I think, in Joe's point, I think at some point we do need to, I think Elizabeth made some great points. I think we try to have to do it like we did with the buses. And I do think we need to, the ordinance regarding tour buses was kind of a little, this has been around since 1992. This one's 1986. I think it is time to maybe put a committee together, I hate to say that word, but a group together that can maybe look at some of these ordinances, and it's time to,
We can do a subcommittee of the board.
yeah,
Those are the ones we like.
are they still relevant, and do they need to make some changes?
That's good. And of course, a lot of that's been done with our land use and our land ordinances, and, things are moving, but I'm sure it's time to take a look at some of these.
You have an
You got to come up to the,
committee.
Yeah.
That's
We need roof mics.
We have an administrative.
Well, that's, I think,
I feel like I'm in charge of the committees. You have an administrative code committee already. This is part of the administrative code. Everything in the ordinance is part, other than the land use, is part of the administrative code. And that committee is supposed to make recommendations, so they're the ones you want to look into this.
That would be me.
I didn't know we had one.
Welcome back.
Those committees.
I have a couple things to say. My family has been involved with Prelude for 35 years. My husband has put up the lobster trap tree and taken it down, decorated it for over 30 years. And after he passed away, my daughter and her husband took over the tradition of the lobster trap tree. And through my husband's little foundation, we even bought the traps this year. So I have definitely felt close to Prelude, been involved, what have you. I used to go to lots of events during Prelude. Now it is really, really crowded. So I don't go to very much anymore. I just think it's not what it used to be 35 years ago when we started putting up the lobster trap. I feel really bad that what should have been a discussion between the Business Association and Lori and the board turned into a giant campaign. And I feel really bad about that because it made you guys the enemy, and you're not. I think looking
That's
at.
the nicest thing someone said to me in like 2 weeks.
I mean, I've watched over all my years, lots of boards of selectmen, and you guys are definitely the most respectful, the most thoughtful board I have seen. And I feel really bad that you got put in the middle because you have to represent everybody. You have to represent not only the business community, but all the voters and the taxpayers. And right now, they're at odds with each other, and you're in the middle. So I feel really bad about that. I don't think you deserve it. I really wish that the business community had taken your offer of paying half. I think that was a great compromise, and I wish that had happened. Now, I don't quite know what's going to happen if we're going to put this money back in the budget. I've seen lots of town meetings over my years that I've run, and all kinds of things can happen at a town meeting. So if we fund the whole prelude, I have a feeling that there's going to be definitely a group of people, group of voters who are not happy with that and are going to come to town meeting and try to vote it down, which they absolutely could. I think if we put in half, like you had suggested, that might pass. But if everything gets voted out, then I don't know where we stand. The business association is going to have to come up with the money to pay for the public safety issue. They have 122 businesses. It would only take $200 per business to pay for that. I don't think that's really a whole lot to ask, considering how much money they actually make during those 2 weeks of prelude. One thing that they never provided us was, they told us what the nonprofits make during prelude, but they never told us what the businesses make during prelude. And I'm guessing it's probably, when you add them all up, in the millions. So I think that they could all chip in $200 and pay for the public service. And I also feel bad for our police officers because they work a full 40-hour week and then they're required to work overtime, lots of overtime, to cover all of this. And they don't have a choice. They're required to do it. It's all hands on deck. And, that's a lot to ask of them. So I think we all should think about all of these things. It's easy to say, well, the police will do it, or the fire department will do it, or Public Works will do it, but it's a lot to ask all of them, because this is all extra that they're doing on overtime. And I don't know, it's just, I just find it difficult to, I'm sorry that you guys were put in the middle of all of this. And whatever we decide, we really need to think about what's going to happen at town meeting and what people are going to approve and not approve.
So just to be clear,
yes.
for right now, as it stands, until the ordinance gets changed, people couldn't even put in money for prelude to cover the cost because it's not per our law. So per our law, commercial, mass gatherings of commercial types have to pay the fee and the cost burden on the town. And it's specified very clearly in the ordinance in terms of that's police and maintenance and that type of stuff.
And
so-
Prelude's the only mass gathering that we didn't charge. Every single other mass gathering in town, we charge for police protection. When we have a road race and we have to block roads off so the bikes can go by or people can run, or if we have a big craft fair on the green or down here on Church Street, we charge every one of those, and some of those are nonprofits they're raising money for nonprofits, but we still charge them. We still charge for police protection. Prelude's the only one that we don't. And are we gonna put this $26,000, is that the amount that we're talking, back into the police budget?
It's
Well,
in the
it's in
police
the budget
budget.
now.
So we're gonna take it out of the police budget?
I think that's a decision for the budget board and the selectmen in terms of their recommendations.
Yeah, because we got the list that you guys were looking at of add back ins.
Right, and there's one other thing I think maybe the board was interested in adding back in, was the program for code
The
enforcement.
GIS.
Right, and I don't know how much that is, it's like $21,000 or something.
Galen.
What's the exact amount, do you know?
Yeah, I think it's
Galen.
21.7.
Galen,
21.7?
Yeah, we have the number.
you're about to get
We got
some
it, we
money
got it.
here.
Yeah. You might want to bid.
You might want to come
Might
up
wanna
with
wake up.
You know, I don't know what everybody else on the board thinks, but,
21,000.
okay, so we should add up what we're talking about, and if there's any others. But I don't want the mill rate to go up.
Right.
That's my whole, because times are tough right now, especially right now. So I think that us holding the mill rate down is a really good thing for everybody in town.
So, as a member of the Budget Board, it's my understanding that the money for Prelude for the entire, both weekends, is still in the budget. It is in the budget. It was not removed.
It's
So
in the
probably-
budget right
It is
now.
in the pro forma budget that we will be reviewing. It would be a decision to remove it.
Well, it
Well,
can't be
no,
paid.
It can't be paid, so it can be either, the choices are to scoop it and, take it to the bottom line, or repurpose that money for something that is in the wish list bucket.
So, because,
You can either lower the total mill rate by not applying it to a wish list item, or you can apply it to a wish list item and still keep the mill rate level where it is now.
right,
So
so,
that's just a choice.
So the budget, right, just so I understand, the budget kind of as it's set now has the mill rate,
Flat.
the mill rate stays flat. The town portion of the mill rate actually drops, okay? So we could, if we take, the money for Prelude is in the budget, so that's still with a drop in the mill rate for the town. If you take some of that money out, as required possibly by the ordinance, you reduce it, you would reduce the town's portion of the mill rate even further, you'd be down to $2 and some cents. Or you can look at the wish list and take that money and move it there, and you'd still keep it.
So now that would be like $40,000 or $50,000 coming out?
No, it would be,
About-
for Prelude, it would be 26,000.
That's total, that's both weeks.
No, it's more than that. Your 26 was just 1 week, right?
No.
Well, I thought that was just overtime. Was the
Yeah,
26?
So there's a few numbers.
Yeah, I think,
So there's what's already in the regular budget. So
Right.
that would not be taken out, because even if they didn't support Prelude, those
They're
are
still working.
regular hours that we pay for. So those would not be removed. That was about 12,000. And then the overtime costs are about 26,000 total for both weekends. And then there were additional costs for outside agencies, and there was a description of if they paid the detail rate, what a number. So there's been several numbers going around. But in terms of what's in the general fund budget for overtime, it's about $26,000.
I think, though, one little A there says that any actual police services that are being utilized by the Prelude, or the mass event, in this case, the Prelude, that money needs to be reimbursed to the town.
Right.
So if the chief determines that 5 officers were needed to work not just overtime, but regular time because of Prelude, he had to put 5 more officers on, that means the base rate plus the overtime for those 5 officers needs to be reimbursed from Prelude to the town.
It's a detail rate. They basically need to contract the services, is what they need to do.
Under C, it talks about,
Yeah.
they need
yeah,
to perform the work per the current union contract.
Right.
Plus the fringe.
Yeah, plus the fringe,
Right.
but it's also, but it's for all the services. It's not
Right.
just for overtime. It's basically,
it's all the
so if you usually have 3 patrol officers and now you put 6 patrol officers out during, that's another 3 FTEs plus overtime that needs to be reimbursed to the town. So it's a cost neutral to the town. That's the way I read that. It's pretty clear.
Yeah, Prelude with the Prelude event, so that's why it's not in the budget, right?
Right.
Because Prelude, per the ordinance, Prelude's not in the budget anymore because that has to be whatever the town cost incurred, that cost has to be brought back from whatever agency.
Correct.
You know, any agency that's considered, falls into the commercial mass license.
Yeah, that's the plain reading, yeah.
Right, so the dollar amount that the,
Make sure you use the mic.
the dollar amount that the organizer would have to pay is going to be higher than the 26.
Yes, sir. That's my-
Absolutely. But
that's-
what we're talking about is what's in the budget.
Ah, okay.
And what's
okay.
going to go back.
But we're gonna get money, okay, so that.
This is
But it
just.
The
becomes-
extra 3 FTEs are not currently in the budget?
No.
Okay, so, I got it.
No.
That's why I'm
Yeah,
not an
and so I
accountant.
think that's why Bob is saying the
I'm
difference.
still
in-
confused.
Right.
Sorry, I don't mean to be a pain in the butt, but,
Yeah.
but, so there's other monies in the budget for Prelude.
No,
Yeah, well, you've got setup stuff, planning and all that kind of stuff. So if you really, that's not really normal. That would fall under this, though, wouldn't it?
What he's saying with normal is that those are just regular hours, and so if we weren't doing that, they would be doing something
now
else.
they could be
And I would
patrolling
still
more
need to pay
streets.
them for
Yeah.
40
Okay.
hours. So I can't remove that from the budget.
Okay, I'm just slow on,
Yep,
No,
The
you're
uptake here, but-
absolutely.
this is good.
but if I'm sure somebody else is too. So we got 2 weekends, and now before we were saying, well, we're not gonna do, we wanted them to pay half the second weekend.
That's what we thought we could. It
Right.
turns out now we couldn't even do
And
it.
now we can't pay the first weekend either.
Right.
Right.
So the number goes up a lot more. So the number's now like in 40,000 or something like that, right?
So there were other costs when the board was talking about half and half. So there are outside agency costs that Prelude paid this year. That was about 9,500. So when the board said cover half, they were talking about that, as well as, you know, the 12,000
Yeah.
from the overtime costs. So they were gonna cover their costs with the regular time as well as the overtime of the first weekend, and they were asking Prelude to pick up the outside agency costs and the overtime from the second weekend. That's how you
So
get to
there
40.
There wasn't 23K of overtime in each of the weekends. That 23 was overtime that would be spread over 2, but instead, what we did is we said, we'll take the extra cost, it's $9,000, and then add, you know, the 12 of the overtime to it. And that's how we came up to the formula to say what's 50/50.
Good.
Way to try to compromise.
Well, but it was the way we arrived to the dollar amount.
So,
But there's still, I mean, the KBA still needs, Prelude still needs to pick up that 9K of the
Yeah,
other
so,
costs.
yeah, so there's other
So that's-
outside agencies that Prelude, you know, will have to, that is relevant to the town,
right.
We
that
were
they'll
just
have to
paying
pay.
them. It was a
Yeah.
bit of a shell game to get to that
So
25.
Kennebunk they pay Kennebunk like $9,000 or something like that, I think I heard last week,
I don't know what they pay Kenny.
to the overtime or something, or the.
Well, if they have to, if we have to bring in the town of Wells, the
Yeah,
town of Sanford.
and I think that was for them, or something like that. I could be wrong. Yeah, in their paper anyway. Plus, do we factor in the monies we make with Prelude in the parking lot, or no?
Well,
It's our money.
the parking lot money goes into the parking lot fund, so we
No, I
wouldn't-
understand that, but we
yeah.
never had the parking lot
It was
open or
always free.
Prelude until a couple of years ago.
It was always free until 2 years ago.
Yeah, I know.
And then it went 50/50.
Right, so we can't, so per our ordinance,
Yeah.
we can't allocate town funds.
Okay.
This
to
isn't a choice.
Prelude.
I'm just trying to
This is-
understand.
yeah,
I gotta
so
be
we-
careful
yeah,
because
so we
my
can't-
nonprofit
yeah,
is a
so
benefit
we-
of that, so,
right,
that
right,
I'm
so we can't-
treasurer of, so.
So we can't reallocate taxpayer dollars or stuff to,
Yeah.
right, so that's why we, again, so, sort of shock and awe, right? Because this is a conversation this afternoon with legal, and so here we are, and so I think, to Elizabeth's point, this is why I think we need to take that time and think through what is, personally, I want to take the time to let the temperature drop, and then get to conversations with residents and businesses. And, and also, some of the tourists, the buses and stuff that come through. So, I think I'd like to reboot and go back, but if we try to do that right now, within a week, no. The temperature's we're over boiling right now.
Yeah.
It's the 11th hour that,
Yeah.
No.
it's almost time to.
But I think it does have to happen for November, and we need to lay out what the costs would be, and we need then to allow the residents to decide.
That's where it should be.
And that's the way it should be.
And that's the way it should
Exactly.
be, right.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be adversarial.
No,
No,
you're not,
I-
sir.
I-
I didn't know.
I've been thinking about this for a week, so.
No, they're good questions. Absolutely.
So I think that's where we were trying to get to is, so the other thing I'd like to say can I say some of my points of view for the budget, or do you want to hold that to next week?
I think this
Let's
is
do
your
it. Go ahead.
forum.
So,
15 minutes.
so one thing I wanted to do, so my preference.
Oh,
until-
can I stop for a minute, because Nicole just passed out this new tax commitment sheet.
How is it, this one?
You
Yep.
scared me.
So I just meant to cover that, and then we got distracted.
Yeah.
We're running
So
out of
this
fumes,
one
so-
that says 3/19/26, and it has green highlight, so you can tell it apart from the yellow highlight one. What
this is
this
latest.
number here is, the education assessment is based on the education budget that they published on March 10th, and they'll be doing the first reading of next week. What the final budget will be, I do not know, but that's that. I did reach out to the county, and they did not give me a budget. But he told me that we should be in the $100,000 to $120,000 increase range in his estimate. So I put 110 in as an increase. So I just wanted to show you the updated tax rate. So you can go back to the original one, was looking at a 16 cents increase, and now it's looking at a 10-cent increase if all this were to go as it is. And then there is the budget adjustment, as we talked about before, with RSU 21 and the homestead, which would bring it down about 7 cents now. The last one, it was 0. So that's, I just wanted to give you a sense of where we are with the newest information we have.
And
So,
I would like to just repeat, I think it's worth repeating that 200,000, I know has been some element of confusion. And that was money that we basically overcharged because we didn't know. We had to commit, and it turned out to be a little bit less on the school last year. So we collected that, now we have it. If we don't apply that, if we just kept that in the general fund, then, as Lori said, we'd have a 10-cent increase today on the mill rate. But if we do apply it, which I'm for doing, I think that's the right thing to do with the money, we're down to 7 cents less in the net than what we're paying now. So it would be a mill rate reduction.
Assuming education and county come out this way.
Exactly.
And
So we
that's,
don't,
and that's where I was gonna.
So it'll be a
did
mill
you
rate
finish?
deduction of,
7 cents.
from
If we didn't add anything in, and that's before we actually
Well,
allocate.
anything, if we didn't add anything in to exceed the 26,000 that we have in
Exactly.
there for Prelude.
right.
So it'd actually be another penny lower. It'd probably, it's about 30,000 to a penny, so it would be about another penny lower if we didn't add anything back.
So
But I
my-
think we're gonna.
I think we are
Yeah.
too. I just want you guys to know where we are in terms of your decisions of what you want to add back. I think we ought to keep it flat. I mean, my God,
I
what
agree.
prices in this world has ever kept flat?
So
don't see a
I
reason
would
to
just,
lower it.
so I would just say one
We got
thing.
needs.
I would say one thing, my fellow
Yes, ma'am.
spend buddy.
Yes, ma'am. Yep.
So the way I look at this is the 200,000 that we collected on the taxes for schools is because we had to pull the plug, and the budget wasn't settled, and we needed to pull the plug and just go what that last approved budget, because we needed to start paying our own bills. And then, so we collected 200,000 from the residents. In my view, that's not my money, that's not the town's money, that needs to go back to the residents. So I want to give the $200,000 back to the residents to say you prepaid your taxes and now you're getting a break. I don't really want to start eating into that. No, I don't want to see that as free money, because in my weird sense of view, the townspeople rejected that school budget, but they had to pay taxes to that budget. And I feel that that's not a vote that townspeople said, you should be able to use this money, town or school. I'm saying, we just had to collect it because we were out of time and we had to start paying our bills.
And I totally see that. And to me, though, in my thinking, it's sunk cost or sunk expense. And so the money is there. Our costs have gone up. We have at least $200,000 of higher costs now. We're cutting programs. We don't know where the heck our gas price is going to be. I think, and you're right, I would be spending $200,000 more as a town, still keeping the mill rate flat, if we didn't add anything else, still keeping the mill rate flat. So it's a different way to look at it. I am more of a spender. I will own that.
So I
But-
look at it in terms of like when I do my own personal budget, and
Yeah,
if
me
we're
too. That's
gonna-
why
and
Connie's
if-
mad at me
and if
most
we're
of the
gonna,
time.
and if we're gonna, yeah, good thing we're not married.
Yeah.
TMI over there. I don't want to really hear this stuff going on.
Yeah, I'm down there. I just got booted off the board. Hey, who likes me anymore
That's right,
anyways,
you're already
read the
sunk.
paper. So, but I think, the way I look at it is that, like, for this year, the town is taking on a major spend of redoing the much-needed, town hall. And so I look at that as like, okay, that's a big spend for the town, and we need to, on some things that we don't need to go out of the gate, that we can delay a year, maybe some funding for some capital equipment that we heard today. I feel that we need to take those breaths, because I think, to our other discussion, our residents in general are under stress, and some of our residents are under stress, and those are the ones that actually count when we're having this discussion.
So in reality, that's newfound money, so to speak, the 200.
Well, it's not newfound. It's already
No, I
collected, but
think
I'm with you.
No, I realize that, but we anticipated when we assessed that, we planned on spending it to the school.
Oh, yeah.
Then we didn't have to, so.
No, we never got, the voters never approved that budget. We
No,
had
I
to collect to the
understand
wrong
that.
budget.
I understand, it was less than, so that $200,000 left over, because we didn't need to pay the school.
Right.
So if we decrease what the end of number is off this year's school in our mind, it's smoking.
Well, it is. The only difference would be if you followed my logic, you would actually spend a little more to get back up to today's mill rate, and therefore have some things we could afford to do for the town. And
And
Well,
my
that's fair,
logic would
but
have
I
been,
think
I
you
would have
gotta grow.
been,
You
I would have
gotta
been
grow.
issuing rebates last year.
All right,
So
can I
if we
ask a
had the
question?
rebate ability, I would have given
Can I ask-
everybody a rebate.
Can I interrupt this little fest and
Little
ask a
left
question? Thank you. I just want to, the 14271 is what RSU has given you, right, Laurie? As where
That's what they
where are right now.
printed, yep.
It could go up, it could go down. So that would actually impact the mill rate.
Oh, yeah.
But the mill rate, so I just
Same
want to
with
make
the
sure,
county.
my understanding is, and I'm going to say this so everyone hears this, the town's portion of the mill rate potentially is going to go down to $2.40 or down 17 cents.
Correct.
That's what the board right now, potentially we're going to give for the taxpayers, is 17 cents reduction.
you bet.
Any increase under that would be the result of this school or the county going up from the numbers that they're proposing. So we are potentially going down. If we add in the wellness for the police and fire, which comes to us, $6,000 or $7,000. $8,000. That would could come out of it could come out of the 200,000. Right?
26,000. Is it 21? What is the prelude number?
26.
26.
So I'm just saying, there are small
26.
increments that we could
Yeah.
increase that isn't going to really jeopardize the mill rate and still reduce the mill rate.
Well, no, anything of the 20, you can take anything, you can add up anything out of the wish list to 26, and it won't touch
So,
this number.
can I just
Yeah.
Back to Lori.
bring this in? So let's start with the budget board and what their thoughts are on the budget, and if, what things they think we ought to change in the budget, if anything.
So I'll start. I think we should add in the 2 wellness programs for the fire and police department.
I don't have a pen.
I'm thinking that maybe we should add in the $21,700 for the code enforcement program and $19,025 for gas. So we have enough money for gas and diesel fuel. So that, I don't know if the budget board has any other things that they would like to add in, but if we add those 4 things in, that totals $48,725. If we subtract the $26,000 out of the police budget, we're left with an
22,700.
$22,725. So if we took that out of the $200,000 that we have, and then just apply the difference, the mill rate wouldn't go down 17 cents, it might go down 16
Well, not
cents.
7 cents. It was actually, 17 was our portion.
Oh,
but
right,
yeah.
our portion. Well,
But-
I'm only talking about our
But it
portion.
wouldn't go down 7, it might go down 6 cents total. Yeah.
Right, right, that's, 22,000 is less than a penny
Yep.
in the mill rate.
30,000 is about a penny.
30,000.
35.
36 case a penny.
So that would be my suggestion. The other place that we could take it out of, which Lori's going to hate me for,
Lord, April, I would never hate you.
Well, go on.
but you know what I'm going to say because I always say it. And I don't have any, the budget board has no control over this, but the overlay is $146,855, which is what's proposed. This year, so far to date, we've only used $825 worth of the $146,000 overlay. So if we took $22,725 off of overlay, that's not a whole lot. You still have a lot of money in there, because I know we're doing the reval, but that probably won't come out of this year's
No.
budget anyway.
No.
So I think we'll have plenty of money in there. We could take it out of there, still apply the $200,000, and the mill rate doesn't go up at all.
Can I?
Goes down.
Can I just continue to hear from the budget
Yeah,
board?
sorry.
That's my thoughts.
Thank you.
What does everybody else think?
I think that was pretty well stated. My personal interests were similar to what you said. I think the police and fire wellness program is really important, and it's not the biggest budget number anyway.
Right.
And some things you want to spend because they really do save you in the long run. I think that the GIS thing you mentioned is in that category.
Right.
So I support pretty much what you said. Thank you.
Okay. Alan?
I have some concern over the fuels, and particularly, do you have a relationship between what percentage each of those 4 fuels has in the budget?
We have them by gallon, yep, in total.
So the big one that I'm following is diesel, which is effectively home heating oil. I'd just be a little concerned that adding 50 cents per gallon is going to be not enough.
Well, and the thought is if we add it to the fuel contingency, it can be flexible depending on where that cost is. But it's a guess.
No,
It's a
It's not
guess.
predictable.
So your thought might be, Alan, to add another penny, just, add another $36,000 onto that, just to have that buffer?
Well, we have our contingency budget.
Yeah, but the contingency's got a lot of, it needs to be used for a lot of things. We came close to totally zeroing it out last year.
No, what April was talking about.
So we're
Right.
letting,
Ah,
we're
that's a
letting
different
the budget board talk still.
Sorry.
Anyway, it's just a concern when I see those two items. I don't know how they're relative to gasoline for our vehicles.
Do you have the gallons of, in total of diesel on the general fund compared to gas?
Yeah.
Or
so
propane.
For what's in the budget?
She'll work on that. And then tell you.
Okay, Charlie?
So I think I'm pretty in agreement with April, with the exception, I'm still not clear about where we are with this ordinance. And do we have to take the money out? Is that what you're saying? We have to take it out?
Yes.
Okay. But as far as the fuel oil, I would suggest not to add it to the line item, but stick it in contingency. It builds up contingency. Still money available to you, because hopefully this whole thing kind of comes to pass in the next couple of months, and maybe we're all happy. Maybe by, July 1st, it's,
No, yeah.
I'm an
Okay,
optimistic.
stay away, stop.
Be really gonna come
Stop,
down to
stop,
where they are?
stop.
Your
Stop.
funeral company come down?
Well, I very much agree with April. So I'm ready. No, I do. I think they're right. We've all talked. Right in there. So do we need to?
No, we
They have-
we have to have the end.
Carol, Elizabeth?
Carol and
Go ahead.
Elizabeth?
I have no comment to make.
Well, Elizabeth has one.
Yes, so I feel very strongly about adding the counseling and wellness to both the firefighters and the police. I unfortunately, this is my first year on this, so I probably need to study my notes a little bit more. If there were any other things, I agree about the planning ahead for the additional fuel costs. I would just say, relative to removing the money out of the budget for Prelude, we don't know ultimately where the ordinance is going to end. And so it may be that the organization, the town, will end up picking up a portion of the Prelude that is not currently budgeted if you pull it out of the budget.
Right.
So I think that needs to be understood as part of a contingency need, because we don't know yet where we will land after we talk with our colleagues across this town, including the business community. It may mean that some money needs to go back into Prelude. That clearly will not be acceptable to everybody, but if we're going to revise this, if we're going to put it in front of the town, there is a future where we could still end up paying as much as we were planning to pay originally for Prelude.
Exactly true.
So,
That was my point.
yes.
No, but
So
that's
I
true.
would advise that we place that money in reserve pending the final decisions relative to this ordinance.
I think that's wise. It would put, okay, are we up?
We're waiting to see if anybody has any other comments. It looks like they're done.
I'm supposed to be running the meeting too, so that's all right.
You were running it.
Can I make a suggestion,
John.
John? There's a potential revenue generator also. I think that this board could potentially look at taking the Dock Square parking fee, which we just raised, and potentially thinking about raising it one more dollar, which would put the cost on the tourists for the most part, and could generate, I don't know how much money.
Oh, wait, Lori knows.
How much? Do we-
120,000.
So we could potentially raise $120,000 if we could come to an agreement to maybe put another dollar on the parking fee that most of the tourists use when they're parking in Dock Square. That's just a thought.
Are you talking year-long or just for Prelude?
No, I'm talking
Year-long?
starting when we start charging for parking. So when you go to park, you now will be paying, what, $6 an hour?
So we just raised.
We
so
just raised it to 6. We
just
could raise it to 7.
Yeah.
And that puts a lot of that money onto the people who are coming to visit town to generate some money for the town. It could, part of the contingency for, and we could call it tourist services.
I
or
think
something
it's a
like that.
good thing to think about. I think there are probably other things we could do as well, but that's a different discussion, it seems to me.
But I'm just saying, there is a-
If you were gonna do it just for Prelude, that might be something to talk about, but it's, and it would nowhere near be that much money.
So can I just
Yep.
make a few comments?
Yeah.
So one thing is, if this goes to voters to change this, there are a couple of options. One is you could put it in contingency now and see if it's needed. Another option would be that in the vote on the ordinance, you could ask them for authorization to expend those funds. So those funds could come from designated fund balance, or those funds could come from Dock Square Parking Lot Fund, as you said, the visitor services. So those are two other fundings, or two other ways to get the funding. So you have 3 options, I think, available to you. So if people want to add in the gas, and I don't know what the right gas amount is, and the GIS and the wellness, we know that the question about whether the Prelude monies are in or not is about 26,000. So April had talked to me last week about some of her desires, and Nicole, and her desire was to keep it at a 0 tax rate. And so Nicole and I went over the revenues again and other things to see if there were any other places. So one question is, Chief Simeone has asked whether we could exchange the security renovations capital for the access control, and nobody's commented on that. So where
I
are
forgot about
people
that.
with that?
You mean
I'm okay with
the grant money?
Yeah, so,
Oh,
so
I-
he would exchange the 50 that he needed for that, now that the grant's in, we don't, for the 47,000 he wanted for access control.
Returns 3 to us.
And he returns 3?
Right, so that's
I get- I get
$3,000
He returns
if you do.
Covers the wellness grant.
That's what I thought, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
So I.
so we have $3,000 if you do that. The other thing is, when we did this budget, the state revenue sharing projections were not out yet. And so those have since come out, and those are projections, they're not necessarily money we're gonna get, but those went up by $10,561. So we could increase our revenue sharing projection by $10,000. And then the only other revenue we found was, usually we have a sale of property in the revenue lines if, we're gonna get rid of something. And so because of the timing on the dump trucks, I didn't think we would have any. But on the current dump truck we're selling in FY '27, we probably might get a revenue projection of 5,000 to 10,000 on that. Of course, that's assuming it's still inspected, but we would put it out to auction. So we could have 10,000 in revenue sharing. We could have 5 to 10 on the truck, and then we have 3,000 on the police capital difference, if you accept that.
So that's 18 of your 22K, basically. If you did 5 for the truck, if you went to the very low,
Right.
that would be 18 off your 22.
Well, are we gonna talk 22, or are we not including not deducting the 26,000? So we're back to the 48,000 of total.
Touche.
So
Well,
that
no,
would take
Lori-
18,000 off. So we're talking 30,000.
Well, Lori said that we had some other, I still think we should deduct the 26, because Lori had mentioned there's 3 other funds or 3 other mechanisms that we can utilize if Prelude gets voted in, so I would,
Okay.
One generated revenue, the other was just putting it in the budget into the reserve, so it's there if we need to take it out, into contingency.
Well, part of this too is if you think going forward for the planning of Prelude, it's gonna be a November ballot. If we put it on ballot, it's November ballot.
Right.
They would have already had to, Prelude itself would have to already have funding to have
Absolutely.
Prelude. So I don't know if we're necessarily gonna be supplying funding for, even if it went through the ballot, Prelude would have to actually have that funding anyways.
Can you make it effective 1 January 2027?
Can't you reimburse?
I think you could reimburse, but it's,
So your three options are, one, put it in contingency in the current general fund budget.
26.
Two is to request, when they vote on it, to authorize you to take the needed money from designated fund balance. And three would be for the board to amend the Dock Square parking lot budget to take the funds from there.
Yeah, so I think so I think at that point, I would either do the Dock Square or have it on the ballot. If we get to a November ballot, we would put it on the ballot to have them allow us to move the money out of the, what'd you say, general fund? No.
or the Dock Square, or one or the other,
Yeah.
designated or
Yeah,
Dock Square.
with either one. Yeah, so I think we would, I think sometimes we add contingency on contingency and stuff, and I think this way, I'd rather, scoop the 26, utilize it for the stuff that people are talking about, add in the other coin that you laid out, Lori. Why can't we do the extra dollar?
So Lori, tell us where we're at right now.
So as you noted, you would need 48,725, almost 49,000, right? So if you were to take the 26 and then the 10 from revenue sharing and the 3 from police capital and the 5 to 10 from the truck, then we are at 1444. And you could,
Five.
if you went for the 10,000 instead of the 5, you would meet
Yeah,
that goal.
you'd be done. So it depends on how much we got for the truck. I mean, it's in the noise, it's in the probability right now. We're balanced.
Okay, so we have enough in increased revenue to cover the items that we want to add back into the budget.
Well, those are options I'm suggesting you could
Yes,
take.
but I think the answer to that is it's possible, depending on how all the other numbers come in, that's a reasonable deduction. And it would give us a 6 to 7 cent reduction in the total mill rate.
I'm loving it.
Elizabeth has a question.
Yeah, well, a question.
comment.
Comment, I'm not sure what it is, but I'm going to go back to David's suggestion earlier. If we want to find an acceptable exit ramp out of this noise that we're in the middle of, the idea of generating more money as a result of a fee change to the parking lot, which could completely offset the budget shortfall, both currently for Prelude, which would give us time. Okay, it would give us time to figure out what the long-term responsibility should be between the town and the business community, that is a third, it's just a third option is all.
But it isn't a choice whether or not to fund Prelude. The law says, as it's written right now, our ordinance says we can't. I agree that there is discussion that needs to come longer term of how the town recoups money from our tourist community, which puts a lot of burden and cost on the town. So I'm in violent agreement with that. I just don't think we ought to conflate the parking lot, raising it with this issue. It's something we're going to look at moving forward, but they're separate things.
So we haven't heard from Alan either, so I don't know if you want to check with him.
Yeah, Alan, is there anything you'd like to weigh in terms of what we've been discussing here?
Well, you guys have had a lot of interesting conversations, that's for sure.
I'm surprised you're still awake, actually, given all
I
this.
actually, in favor of what Mary Beth just said. I think that's the way to go. That's how I'm looking at it. I also
He's
like
back
the
on
idea
keeping the 200K,
of,
and he's stuck on that.
Yeah.
what'd you say?
Yeah, we're just acknowledging that you are in favor of keeping the 200K back to the residents and keep that mill rate below where it is this year.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you much.
Vote everybody on the budget board.
Do we need to vote?
We're gonna eventually, but not right
Yeah,
now.
I don't think you need
But
now.
I think we need to give guidance to Lori so that she can come back with a adjusted budget that we can all vote on next
Do
week.
you have what you need?
Just a quick question. So the 26,000, what are we doing with that? We leaving it in the budget or we put it in contingency?
We're taking it out of the budget and then. if
Stick it in
we have to-
contingency till we see what happens.
No, we're
in-
taking it out of the budget, and then if we go to a November ballot, if we find a path forward and it has to go to the November ballot, then like Lori said, on the November ballot, we can ask the voters I think we are going to give funding, if we agree to give some funding to Prelude and the residents agree, then that would be on the ballot to remove it from either the parking lot fund, which doesn't increase this, or from the
Undesignated fund.
undesignated
Okay,
fund
so we're
balance.
taking it out of the police budget now,
Right.
is what we're saying? Okay.
But there are separate pools, there are separate
But we'll go
funds
get it someplace if it
from
gets
which it
voted
can
in by
be
the
If it
town.
extracted,
gets
if the
voted
tax,
in.
if the,
If the voters voted in.
I still want to have the door shut.
no, it's not sure.
It has to go through a ballot, right? So,
So the schedule is that next week, the select board has to vote on their recommendations. And traditionally, the budget board has met the week after to vote on theirs. The challenge this year is we're short a week, and so the warrant has to be signed on April 9th, which means we have to have the warrant finalized. So they can vote next week. I just wanted to make sure that we had these conversations so we knew whether we were in concert with each other or not, because we're short that week. But if the budget board wants to come in next week and vote on theirs as well, they can, or if you want to wait till April 2nd.
Yeah, let's not wait. Let's get it over with. Let's do it.
And I like
We can
having
be
this
together.
dialogue too. This is just, yeah.
Exactly.
Can we have the specific items that we're gonna vote on?
Yep.
there
Oh,
in front of us so that we're clear?
So
For
what we'll
example,
do is we'll
the $200,000
put these in.
should be put up for vote.
Yep, and then we'll make a spreadsheet and send it out to you tomorrow. So do you have the question about fuel?
Yes, they're looking for gallons. So what we have budgeted for gallons, for gas, we have 13,300, and diesel, we have 10,600. And those numbers are, I took a 3-year average, the usage, and that's how I came up with those numbers.
And then heating, fuel, and propane.
And so oil,
Surprised
the
the
heating
gas is-
fuel, we have 4,500 gallons, and propane, we have 9,650.
96.5. 96.
9,650.
Wow, more
Gallons?
propane than
Yeah.
heating oil? I didn't realize we
We
were.
have, this building's propane, police is propane,
Wow,
Is that MCF or gallons?
the heat pump's electric, yeah.
heat pump.
They're just running on electric.
I'm surprised I was
So,
just wrong on those.
Lori, you're gonna get everything for us this week, and next Thursday, we're all gonna be here, right? Because we need a quorum to vote. And we're gonna both vote on the budget.
That's what it sounds like.
Get it
Yep,
done.
Get it done.
Okay?
Yep.
Do we need to
you
do
wanna
anything
close-
else?
Close your meeting.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Kai, second?
Oh, excuse me, we've got.
Oh,
Alan?
Tina, please.
May I just say one thing?
Oh, okay.
Hi, sorry, Tina Hewitt-Gordon here. Business Association hat on now. April, I'd just like to, number one, say, this board has been very fair. I've spoken to all of them individually, and Lori herself as well. We have listened, we've talked, and I'm very respectful of the work that they do here, as is the rest of the Business Association and my board.
Facebook isn't, though.
I'm sorry?
Facebook isn't.
Well, we can't control that,
I know.
okay?
Well, but you put it out there.
So I just want there's no divide that needs to happen here. I mean, we are one community, we need to work together on this. And so, obviously, if there are an ordinance that hasn't been followed, then we can't go back, we can only go forward. We can take a look at what needs to happen in the future, so that we don't have these kinds of conversations, and we can make decisions collectively, for sure. But I will just like to point out that we do spend $112,000 as a business association to put Prelude on, and we ask a lot of our business community, and so, you know, you say an extra $200 per business isn't a lot, but it is, in addition to everything else that they do. We have offered for the last 3 years to pay the detail pay, or the difference between what the guys make and the detail pay. We fully 100% support that, and as a business association, want to make sure that they're making that money. And we've been very, very happy with the partnership, and very appreciative of the partnership that the town has offered in the past. And I'm just hopeful that, you know, we can work something out moving forward down the road. So thank you for all of your time. I know these meetings have been long. We've had lots of conversations. But I know that this is fixable. And so thank you again for all of your work.
Thanks, Tina.
So do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, did you get a
We
vote?
did, oh, well, no, we didn't vote.
All
We
right.
had a motion and a second. All those in favor of adjourning? Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All
Second.
those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.